Chapter 31. Star, The Test, 2, you are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Choi Bu Yong explained, as you can see, the spear is still missing a few things. I'm still creating the other 5 blades and devices. The spear Chang Sun had requested needed to be capable of changing into various forms. He had to be able to use his magic to transform the blade into a hoko yari, a dagger. Axe, a glaive, and more, depending on what he needed. If an incompetent blacksmith created the spear, it would just look complicated and be sloppily put together, but Bu Yong did not need to worry about any such thing. The blueprints drawn by Chang Sun had been perfect, and Bu Yong was confident in his talent. Besides, he had felt certain he was worthy of inheriting his father's name when he saw the result. The only thing he lacked at the moment was time. So it's incomplete, Chang Sun said as he skillfully spun the spear. Right, so I need more time, Choi Bu Yong replied with a nod. How much time do you need? Chang Sun asked. He readily agreed to give Bu Yong more time, because he was more than satisfied with the current spear. The fact that it could not immediately be used in actual combat was disappointing, but he did not need it immediately. Half a year, Bu Yong said, holding up 6 fingers. What? Chang Sun asked with a frown when he heard the response, because he had previously given Bu Yong a 6-month deadline for the shield. I'm saying that because there are some parts of the spear I want to improve in my own way. How does that sound? Bu Yong quickly added, as if he were making excuses. Judging from how he trailed off, it seemed he was cautious around Chang Sunday. This time, Chang Sun was the one to be surprised. He had not even considered editing the blueprints, thinking the designs were already perfect. However, they could potentially become better with Oh Yezi's touch, so Bu Yong's offer naturally intrigued Chang. Sunday, maybe I can achieve Spear Ocean faster. Chang Sun thought as he looked at Bu Yong. No matter how proficient he was in handling various weapons, it was possible that he was being too greedy by asking for another weapon, considering how he already had weapons like Tiamat Snaggletooth, and the Yuchang sword, which he had not yet unlocked the hidden abilities for. Nevertheless, Chang Sun had a good reason. Just as several conditions needed to be met to achieve the impervious body, Chang Sun had to fulfill several hidden conditions in order to achieve the King of Weapons trait. He had to unlock titles that could only be gained by mastering each weapon, such as Saber Mountain, Sword Forest, Spear Ocean, Fist Wind, Poison Cloud, and Whip Fire. That was why he needed a special spear. He could not carry too many spears at once. I was actually shocked when I first inspected the blueprints using my skills. They looked like designs for mere toys at first glance, but the closer I looked, the more realistic and practical they appeared to be, making me feel more motivated as a blacksmith. I want to make this even more perfect because I feel as if I can produce a masterpiece for the first time, Bu Yong said brightly. Chang Sun could feel Bu Yong's passion at that moment, burning as hotly as the divine fire furnace. You can take the spear you're holding right now, since it'll be quite practical in combat, but bring it back to me every month or 2. If I finish upgrading the spear 3 times, I guarantee it'll become much better than you could have expected, Bu Yong said, clenching his fists. As Bu Yong was suggesting that course of action directly, Chang Sun could hardly refuse. He nodded, making Bu Yong smile. Judging from the man's expression, Chang Sun was convinced Bu Yong had not been lying when he said he had been motivated as a blacksmith. Click, swish. After skillfully retracting the blades built into the spear, Chang Sun separated it once again into 2 batons and put them back in the drawing tube. It was finally time to check out the other weapon, which looked like a twisted bracelet. The Celestial, a good season to hunt, urges you to quickly check out the weapon. The Celestial World Encircling Serpent flicks his tongue. The bracelet was the whip Chang Sun had previously asked for. Just like the long spear that could be assembled, Chang Sun had asked for it to look like an ordinary object when not in use. Wondering how well it would satisfy him compared to the previous weapon, Chang Sun tightly gripped the bracelet. ******. A taxi arrived at the White Tiger clan's head office, which was located in Tehran.ro. It's 22,001, the taxi driver recited in a monotone. With the rattling drawing tube on his shoulder, Chang Sun got out of the taxi, muttering to himself, there are too many people. The Celestial, a good season to hunt, nods in agreement with you. The Celestial, a good season to hunt, tilts her head in confusion because she is unsure why you are here. The Celestial, a good season to hunt, advises you to leave this place, as it is a bad-tempered monster deity's home base. Just as Chang Sun had said, the vacant lot in front of the building was packed full of people. All of them looked different, some were covered with expensive-looking pieces of equipment, while others dressed plainly, only holding swords or spears. There was also one person sitting in the lotus position, meditating. They were all players who had applied for the White Tiger clan's job posting. Well, becoming a player was one of the few chances people had to begin turning their lives around even before I left. Chang Sun thought with a shrug. Considering that, joining the White Tiger clan would mean someone had already begun to change their life for the better. Most people don't know it's a starting point, though. Chang Sun thought. Unlike other clans that operated more like closed religious groups, the White Tiger clan was more like a group of mercenaries, allowing players with guardians other than Hyoju to join their ranks. From Chang Sun's perspective, most of the gathered players were mere small fry. If they ended up in Arcadia, they would be eaten by monsters, unable to last more than a few days. Only a few of them had caught his eye. A mere 3 or 4 seemed to have useful or promising talent, leading him to assume that they would be the ones who were ultimately hired. The Celestial, a good season to hunt, awaits your answer. Will there be strong people in the clan? Chang Sun thought. Wu Yang Gun, whom he had met a month prior, came to mind. The White Tiger clan was a bigger clan than the Sword of Osung clan, which meant it had to have stronger people. The Celestial, a good season to hunt, is mad because you keep ignoring her. The Celestial, a good season to hunt, angrily asks whether you are planning to reject her offer and become another deity's apostle. In the meantime, Pablesag had lost her temper after belatedly realizing Chang Sun's plans. She had been wooing Chang Sun in order to make him her apostle for the past month, but Chang Sun had not budged. Thus, she naturally felt that it was unfair to see him visiting another deity. The other deities' reactions were no different. The Celestial World Encircling Serpent asks why you are trying to befriend a low-ranking monster deity. The Celestial Abyss Chasing Great Devil awaits your answer. The Celestial Twilight Piercing Owl says she will cheer you on until the end, even though she is saddened by your choice. Unlike the short-tempered Pablesag who was throwing a tantrum, Jade at Ramungandra assumed Chang Sun was plotting something, as he had been unable to figure out what Chang Sun was up to the entire time. Mephistopheles still seemed to be indifferent to Chang Sun's intentions, on the other hand. Minerva quietly cheered for Chang Sun as if they shared blood. At this point, Chang Sun was amazed by the fact that such different deities were all watching him. Anyway, where's the Daedong building? Chang Sun thought as he looked around. The Celestial, a good season to hunt, is depressed because you are not listening to her. Still ignoring Pablesag, Chang Sun was about to search for the interview venue when a woman carefully approached him and asked, Are you Mr. Lee Chang Sunday? Surprised, Chang Sun looked in her direction. He saw an unfamiliar woman in her early 20s with a short hairstyle that suited her well. You seem to be Lee Chang Sun. You're him, right? The woman asked as she cautiously observed Chang Sunday. Yes, I'm Lee Chang Sun, but who are you? Chang Sun asked. Wow. Whoa. I never thought I would meet the T-tyrant here. I'm so glad to meet you, as a fan of yours, the woman shrieked, sounding like any fan who had met their idol on the street. Chang Sun smiled bitterly. If there was one thing he had been unable to get used to in the past month, it was the fact that quite a few people recognized him when he walked through the streets. It had been a long time since he was a professional gamer. He remembered very little of those years, partly because he had tried to forget the terrible end his career had come to. However, to the people on Earth, his retirement had been a mere year or two prior, which meant that the people who recognized him were very glad to meet him. That was why I wore a hoodie, but maybe I was too complacent. Chang Sun thought as he pulled down his hood. He hated interacting with strangers who pushed their unwanted sense of nostalgia on him. Perhaps Chang Sun's reluctance showed on his face, as his fan noticed that something was wrong and calmed herself down. She covered her mouth, mumbling carefully, "Did I make a mistake? The first test is about to begin. Move to the appropriate sector in accordance with your interview number, which we have distributed online in advance," a White Tiger Clan staffer called out. "I see the test is about to start. I wish you luck in your interview," Chang Sun quickly said. "Pardon? Yeah. I hope you also get hired, Mr. Chang. Sunday," the fan replied, holding her hands together. "Thank you," Chang Sun replied, nodding slightly in the fan's direction before walking away. His interview number was 1031, which meant he had to go to Sector C. Asterisk asterisk asterisk, what's up with that prick? I can tell from his white face that he's never fought in his life, but why does he look so confident, a man remarked with a look of disdain. Hey! Don't insult my appa. He may look that way, but he has many emotional scars, his female twin replied, fervently defending Chang. Sunday. Appa. Apaya. You always call me you or hey, even though I'm actually your older brother, her brother replied. The leader of Team Adios, Kim Hyung Jun, frowned as he watched his twin team members. Shin Eun Seo, the female twin, had never shown any interest in him even though they had gone on several raids, had drinks, and eaten together, and yet, she had suddenly begun to display an interest in another man. If you want me to call you Appa, then be handsome like him. You look like a piece of dried squid that somebody chewed and spat out, Eun Seo retorted before looking away. What? Dried squid? Are you kidding me? Her brother exclaimed, standing up from his seat. I'm serious. What about it? Eun Seo shot back, glaring at her twin. You're one to talk. You look as if you're holding a stuffed bun in each cheek, the male twin retorted, poking Eun Seo's forehead with a finger. Hey! I told you not to talk about my cheeks. Eun Seo protested, slapping her brother's hand away. Well, I didn't hear you, her brother said, sticking his tongue out. Ugh! I'm going to kill him. Eun Seo grumbled, standing up from her seat as well. Whoa! Why don't you two both stop fighting? By the way, do you know that man who showed up just now? Hyung Jun asked Eun Seo after trying to calm the pair down as gently as possible, wanting to find out the man's identity. Ah, are you talking about my appa? Eun Seo replied with a smile after sitting back down. Your appa? Hyung Jun asked gently, although he was gritting his teeth. Do you not know him? The tyrant from Est Band? Eun Seo asked in surprise. Ah. He was a professional gamer, right? Hyung Jun asked, belatedly realizing who Chang Sun was. Unlike most ordinary men, Hyung Jun was uninterested in games, but he knew who Chang Sun was. Although he was unsure how good a professional gamer Chang Sun had been, Chang Sun had shot many commercials due to his looks, as he was more handsome than most actors, thus, he had garnered many female fans around the world. However, Chang Sun had created many scandals due to his self-righteous personality and nasty tongue. Thus, it was no surprise that he looked somewhat familiar to Hyung Jun, who wondered why such a person had shown up. I was really worried about him because I heard he became really dejected after his team was disbanded and he was forced to retire, Eun Seo said as she leaned back in her chair. Hey. Worry about our parents like. Erf. Shin Jiam Gyu, the male twin, began to tease Un Seo, but she stomped down hard on his foot. Un Seo continued, anyway, I never thought I would run into him like this. He's clearly been preparing to become a player. He's definitely my tyrant. He never gives up. Ah, she became a lunatic again. Hyung Jun, don't mind her. She's always a sucker for handsome men. She's one crazy fan. Aren't you, crazy? Arf. Stop stepping on my foot. Jiam Gyu yelled. Although Hyung Jun smiled at the bickering Shin siblings, he was seething with anger. His name's Lee Chang. Son, right. How dare someone who spent his life just playing games in his room just apply for the White Tiger clan like this? I'll teach him a lesson so he can know his place, he thought, quietly clicking his tongue. If Hyung Jun demonstrated that he was overwhelmingly stronger than Chang Sun in the player tryouts, Un Seo would surely look at him in a different light. He clenched his fists at the thought of it. Just then, Hyung Jun coincidentally saw Chang Sun approaching a magic testing device, which could classify people based on the amount and output of their magic. It hasn't been long since he retired as a professional gamer. Then, there should be no need to. Hyung Jun thought, but he was suddenly interrupted. Right as Chang Sun put his hand on the machine and released his magic. Boom! The device immediately exploded with a loud bang, filling the room with clouds of smoke and an acrid smell. Dot. 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 Everyone present, from the supervisor and the applicants who were taking the test all the way down to Hyung Jun, received the shock of their life. 1. A region in Seoul. 2. The term literally means older brother, but Koreans often call attractive men oppa, as a term of endearment regardless of age. Chapter 32. Star, the test. 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Boom. Rumbly. Ha, is that sound from Sector C again? What the? What kind of monster is he? Where did he come from? We still have to wait for our turn, so do you want to go and watch? Several people busily talked among themselves. During the player auditions, the White Tiger clan's Daedong building was usually quiet, as the people inside were all nervous. However, it seemed the current auditions were different due to a suspicious applicant who had appeared in Sector C. The tyrant Lee Chang Sun, a former World.class professional gamer, had caused a sensation. After the magic testing device used for the first test exploded, the exam staff had hurriedly brought another machine, thinking the previous one might have malfunctioned. However, they belatedly realized the magnitude of the situation, as the replacement magic testing device also exploded. The devices they used during the test were for novice players whose levels were under 30. They would easily malfunction if they were infused with magic beyond their capacity. That meant Chang Sun was an intermediate rank player who was above level 30. No, the exam staff expected that he had to be at least level 40, as the device had exploded. They were unsure why such a talented player had applied via the new employee recruitment process, not the one for experienced employees. Regardless, they brought a more advanced testing device that could display both the player's level and magic class, thinking there had to be a reason for the explosions. However, when the new device showed Chang Sun's test results, they were left gaping. As it turned out, all their expectations were wrong. What, 25, did you see his grade? Shit. We can't handle this on our own. The section chief. No, call the department head right now. Come on. The exam staff fell into chaos, because they had previously expected Chang Sun to be a player in the level 40 range, or even a ranker in the level 50 range who had hidden his level. And yet, a novice player who had not even reached level 30 had pulled off something unbelievable. On top of that, his magic grade, which referred to his magic's purity and efficiency, was not just SSS grade. It had 3 pluses in the end. Even the Duke.class or King.class high rankers only had SSS grade at most. That was not all, however. There was still a possibility that the device had failed to accurately measure Chang.Sun's magic grade due to the device's limits. Chang.Sun's magic class could be EX grade or R. grade, which were known as exceptions. Naturally, the testing site was in an uproar, which meant the staff in Sector C had to stop the test in order to accurately figure out what had happened. After hearing the news, several White Tiger Clan's executives had arrived in Sector C to observe Chang.Sunday. Sector C became Chang.Sun's personal testing site, and the other applicants in Sector C were sent to other sectors. The second and third test results were no different from the first test. The power and speed testing devices both gave Chang.Sun a perfect score. The device they used for the third test, which was about testing the player's reflexes, overloaded in a burst of white smoke. Just then, he even passed the fourth test easily. Sector C was soon surrounded by a group of spectators, as the rumors about Chang.Sun spread through the entire Daedong building. Isn't he the tyrant? Yeah, you're right. I'm sure of it, because a person who's that handsome is rare. I heard he became an alcoholic. What on earth happened to him? Man, you're naive. How can you believe that, you idiot? Maybe someone spread that rumor to hide the fact that he was getting trained by an expensive private coach. Shit. He's handsome, a great gamer, rich, and his class is. I envy him so much. You skipped one thing. What did I skip? He's popular among women. He's one gifted bastard. He's a bastard who's gifted with everything. After some time passed, the spectators began having increasingly ridiculous conversations. Perhaps they would have been jealous if Chang.Sun had only been a moderately better player. However, the gap between Chang.Sun and them was simply too wide, rendering them unable to even think about being jealous. Instead, they blamed their misfortune of happening to take the test on the same day as a person with overwhelming talent. Damn. Why did I apply for the same job posting as him? I'll only look worse than him. I'm fucked. This is already my 5th time applying for the White Tiger Clan. My parents will kick me out of the house if I don't get hired this time, too. Some people had already given up on the test and begun filming Chang.Sun's test with their smartphones. Others had begun calling broadcasting stations and newspaper companies, tipping them off. Perhaps the whole world would be stirred up the next morning, as many news articles and broadcasts reported the return of a fallen genius. Considering how the Hyoff clan scandal had provoked outrage around the world, people would be glad to read news articles about the birth of a new hero. However, the applicants did not realize just how great Korea's information technology was. Information spread even faster in Korea than they thought. While checking multiple web portals, an applicant saw the name Lee Chang.Sun in the real.time search rankings and yelled, "News articles about him are already up." Huh. Why is it so noisy around here? The Smilodon, attack team 2 leader Seo Jong-gwon muttered with a frown as he observed the noisy scene outside. He had stayed up all night to chase down the Hyoff clan's remnants, then had to go directly to the office in order to report to his superiors without a moment's rest. The long night left him on edge. If he could do as he pleased, he would barge into the Daedong building and teach the rowdy crowd a lesson. However, he could not do that. If he did, people would brand him a demon, condemning him instead of the Hyoff clan. A super rookie has shown up at the interview, so Executive Director Oh and Director Kim are watching the rookie's test, Jong-Gwon's subordinate reported with a bow. The moment Jong-gwon heard the names of Executive Director Oh and Director Kim, his eyes shot open and he became fully alert. The two were the very people he had been waiting for, being part of his faction and equally prominent figures in the White Tiger Clan. Why are those two taking interest in the test? Jong-gwon asked, tilting his head. Do you remember Lee Chang.Sunday? His subordinate asked. Lee Chang.Sunday. Li Chang, son. I think I've heard that name from somewhere, Zhang Guan muttered, stroking his chin. He is the rookie you waited for with black shamshir and iron which a month ago, his subordinate explained. Ah, the guy from the Jamsil gate. Zhang Guan replied with a nod. Black Shamshir was Wu Yang Gun from the Sword of Osung clan, and Iron Witch was Cha Yi Dun from the council. As it was rare for the three, who were on bad terms, to sit in the same room, Zhang Guan remembered the moment vividly. We were going to recruit him, but we couldn't do much because the High-Off clan bastards happened to cause trouble, right? Well, what about him? Zhang Guan asked, scratching his head. He has applied for the current player audition, his subordinate calmly said. Zhang Guan was dumbfounded at first, but he soon broke into laughter. What? Ha 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 ha. The Jamsil Gate had contained the tutorial that attracted many Celestials' attention, and in that tutorial, Chang Sun had gotten a perfect score. Among the clan's executives, the fact that Chang Sun was the mysterious L of urban legends was no longer a secret. That meant considering Chang Sun a mere rookie could only be a gross underestimation. Zhang Guan was unsure who had actually attempted to recruit Chang Sun, but he was certain that many clans had tried to headhunt him. From what he had heard after he returned from Chang Sun's home, the White Tiger clan's guardian, Calamity Tiger, had taken an interest in Chang Sunday. Zhang Guan's superiors had sent him to recruit Chang Sun for that reason. However, the White Tiger clan had needed to stop their attempts to recruit him, because the incident from the Bongwasan Gate had been exposed to the public. They had been too busy pursuing the vanquished High-Off clan's players in order to destroy any evidence. The White Tiger clan had thought recruiting Chang Sun was a lost cause, and yet Chang Sun had voluntarily applied for the clan's job posting. The absurdity of the situation made Zhang Guan laugh incessantly, clearly imagining the personnel department's ordinarily cocky members panicking. He remarked, they must have freaked out. They were no doubt busy sorting things out, as a man who would be treated like royalty in any clan had shown up. What are the test results? Zhang Guan asked, crossing his arms. They're all perfect scores. And his magic grade is SSS with 3 pluses, his subordinate cautiously said. What? Zhang Guan exclaimed, his laughter suddenly ceasing. He had never once seen a player with an SSS+++ magic grade. Continuing his report, his subordinate said, so they are planning to test his magic grade again after he finishes all the other tests. With the gaze of a tiger observing its prey, Zhang Guan stroked his chin and smiled intimidatingly as he asked, but how did no one know that Chang Sun had applied for the White Tiger clan? Executive Director O already turned the personnel department upside down regarding that matter. It seems someone omitted the report, his subordinate said with a shrug. I guess that's why they're late today, Zhang Guan muttered with a nod, finally understanding why he had been neglected for over an hour. It seemed that one of the personnel department section chiefs had omitted the report due to incompetence or jealousy. Zhang Guan felt that the person responsible would no doubt go through hell. I have no other choice, Zhang Guan said, suddenly standing up as if he had decided on something. His surprised subordinate asked, what's wrong? I'm going to see this Li Chang Sun guy with my own eyes, Zhang Guan replied with a grin. But Executive Director O and Director Kim will come here soon, his subordinate protested, trying to stop him. No, they're only going to be available in the late afternoon to hear my report, judging from how things are turning out, Zhang Guan said, firmly shaking his head. Ah, his subordinate muttered, stepping aside. And, Zhang Guan began, his eyes shining brightly as his subordinate watched him in confusion. Zhang Guan continued with a grin, I have to snatch him away before anyone else does, don't I? The Celestial, a good season to hunt pompously says that you are definitely her diamond after seeing how many people are paying attention to you. Pablesag, who had been worrying anxiously about Chang Sun making Hyoju his guardian, was puffed up with pride as if she were Chang Sun himself. Is she just simple-minded or an attention seeker? Chang Sun thought, laughing dryly as he observed Pabelsag while preparing for the last test. A large, open space surrounded by fences had been prepared in Sector C, where Chang Sun was waiting alone. Behind the fences, many spectators stood watching. On the far side of the sector, designated seats had been prepared for several threatening-looking men. They're Hyoju's claws and fangs. Chang Sun realized. Each one of the men was as ferocious as a beast. With Hyoju as their guardian, they worked voluntarily as his loyal servants, meaning they were the people Chang Sun had to fight and kill. It's not going to be easy. That was the first thought that crossed Chang Sun's mind. Hyoju's servants looked more ferocious than he had expected. Although he had fought in wars against numerous apostles and priests in Arcadia, Hyoju's servants looked even stronger than those foes. However, Chang Sun was unsure whether that was because players on Earth were generally strong, or because the players of the White Tiger clan were simply talented. It seemed Chang Sun would need a lot of time to hunt down every player in the White Tiger clan, but the celestial Calamity Tiger observes you with interest. Chang Sun did not fail to notice the air above the heads of Hyoju's servants being distorted, taking the shape of a tiger. Hyoju was watching Chang Sun through his priest's eyes. He was intrigued by the super rookie who had voluntarily come to him. Then I'll have to fulfill his expectations, Chang Sun thought with a faint smile. As he had been planning to monopolize Hyoju's attention to begin with, he had to show off all he had. Thump. Chang Sun finally put down the drawing tube he had never opened previously, making a loud sound. The celestial world encircling serpent assumes you are plotting something. After reading J. Ramungandra's message, Chang Sun turned and informed a staffer, I'll take the test right away. Wiping away the sweat dripping down his cheeks with a handkerchief, the staffer nodded. As a low-level employee, he felt incredibly tense. The clan's executives, whom he had previously been watching from afar, were looking in his direction. Apart from the clan leader Sword Sky Tiger, Executive Director O and Director Kim were the most influential people in the White Tiger clan. The staffer trembled as he stuttered, Why? You're going to hunt a monster for the last test. You can choose any monster you want, such as a red orc or a twin-head ogre. Then, I'll summon it here and you'll have to fight it on point 1. 2 players in the level 20 range were needed to hunt a red orc, and a twin-head ogre could only be killed by 4 to 5 players in the level 30 range. They were normally found as boss monsters in dungeons. No one could kill such monsters one-on-one, thus, the purpose of the final test was to demonstrate players' ability and talent to the fullest extent. If the applicant seemed to be in mortal danger, the attack team members on standby would be dispatched immediately, which meant there was nothing to worry about. Of course, Chang Sun had no intention of finishing the test in an ordinary manner. He wanted to put on a more brilliant and astonishing display than anyone else. Are those the only monsters you have? Chang Sun asked, as if the monsters the staffer had mentioned were insufficient. The staffer immediately looked at his superior who was right beside him, silently asking whether to grant Chang Sun's request. Regardless of Chang Sun's SSS+++ magic grade, a level 25 player could not possibly fight against monsters stronger than the previously mentioned ones, especially not on point 1. However, his superior nodded, seemingly telling him to do as Chang Sun wanted. They had no other choice, because too many people were watching. In the end, the staffer turned pale and answered haltingly, the strongest monster we can summon right now is a drake, then I choose to summon a drake. Chang Sun answered firmly, leaving the spectators surprised. Even though drakes were low-rank dragon-type monsters with minimal intelligence, a dragon-type monster was still a dragon. Even the experienced players in the level 40 range had to study the geographical features of any territory where drakes lived before trying to hunt them one-on-one. Why was Chang Sun requesting such a monster? The drake could break away and run toward a crowded place, causing a disaster. That fact alone made Chang Sun come across as incredibly arrogant, but his confidence was undeniable. Thinking things would somehow work out, as the clan's executives were in the testing area, the staffer summoned the monster Chang Sun wanted. Pa! The magic circle on the floor turned blue. Thud! A 5-meter tall drake fell from the sky, making the ground shake fiercely. Wow, that's... I can't believe I'm seeing a drake with my own eyes. How on earth is he planning to catch that? The spectators spoke energetically among themselves. The drake seemed to have been summoned in the middle of its meal. Its mouth was smeared with blood and flesh, distinctly revealing its violent temper. Gradually realizing the situation it was in as it heard the noise coming from its surroundings, the drake roared up toward the ceiling. Roar! The monster then began charging toward Chang Sunday. Thump, 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 the celestial calamity tiger wants to test your ability. Come, Hyoju. Chang Sun thought as he looked at the drake. His eyes shone coldly as he grabbed the drawing tube on the floor. Chapter 33. Star, the Test, 4, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chang Sun merely stood still until the drake was practically right in front of his face. If not for his sharp gaze, the onlookers would have taken his response for a panic attack. Will he be okay if he does nothing? That looks too dangerous. The spectators were left surprised and perplexed. Even the executives were shocked, wondering what to do. The celestial calamity tiger doubts you for not moving at all. The drake's jaws opened wide, revealing its sharp fangs. It seemed as if it would tear apart Chang Sun at any moment. The celestial calamity tiger is certain that you are going to die. Now, Chang Sun yelled in his mind. Whirl! He swiftly twisted the drawing tube open, and the spectators saw something flying into the air. Stab, stab. Squirt. Two rays of light, moving so quickly they were invisible to the naked eye, dug into the drake's eyes when it was merely 2 meters away from Chang Sunday. At first, the spectators' eyes widened in surprise, as they were unable to understand the situation. The gigantic drake suddenly came to a halt, losing its balance and falling over sideways with both eyes erupting into fountains of blood. Only then did the spectators realize what had happened. What was that? When did he? They all shouted in astonishment. Roar! With a short spear in each eye, the drake roared in pain. Its eyes were completely destroyed, leaving it blind. None of the spectators had seen what Chang Sun did, leaving them shocked. They were not the only ones to be surprised, however. Even the clan executives, who were watching from the far end, were taken aback. Team Leader Park. Was that? One of the executive subordinates quickly asked. You're right. He's really fast and has good aim for a player at that level. I think he would be good with a bow too, attack Team 1, Leader Park sang. Ho remarked, bursting into laughter. The White Tiger clan's attack teams were under the clan leader's direct supervision, which meant the attack team leaders were all treated as executives. Sang Ho was a founding member of the White Tiger clan, who assisted the clan leader Sword Sky Tiger and executive director O. Naturally, that meant he was influential in the clan, and yet a person of his stature was laughing. He laughed for the simple fact that he too would have failed to follow Chang Sun's movements if he had not strengthened his vision with magic. It looks like, Sang Ho began after calming down with great difficulty. That I need to have him, Sang Ho declared, grinning in satisfaction. Upon hearing that statement, the other executives started to think quickly. Meanwhile. Whoosh, whoosh. Chang Sun moved with great agility, avoiding the drake as it went on a rampage. When the drake turned, revealing its weak spot, Chang Sun infused his magic into the bracelet on his right hand. Click. With a sound that resembled a lock opening, the bracelet unraveled strand by strand, elongating into several thin and tough leather cords that touched the floor. Whoa, what's that? He has another weapon in addition to the spears. The spectator's eyes widened again when Chang Sun revealed his new weapon. Nameless 9-tail whip, a whip forged by O Yezi's heir for a commission. The item normally appears to be a bracelet, but it can transform into a whip when infused with the owner's magic. 9 small whips were woven into one to make this whip, which means it will likely be difficult to master. Type: Whip. Infantry weapon. Damage: 100. Effect: multi-hit stacking damage. Curse strengthening. Asterisk: the artifact will belong to you indefinitely. If you give the spear to somebody else, the weapon's effects might disappear. The creator has not named the whip, so please give it a suitable name. When Chang Sun first received the whip from Choi Bu Yong, he had been more surprised than when he received the 2 short spears. I never thought the complete method to forge soft steel would have been passed down to Bu Yong. In truth, the whip Chang Sun had requested was strange. The difficulty of making it depended on the blacksmith. If an incompetent blacksmith were to weave 9 whips into one, it could simply end up too thick to be useful in real combat. However, Bu Yong had successfully made the whip's frame using a unique method that had been passed down to O Yezi's heirs for generations. After that, he had managed to use the entirety of the flame tiger's skin provided by Chang Sun when making the weapon, creating the perfect infantry weapon. Naturally, Chang Sun was very comfortable with the whip as if he had been using one for a very long time, just as with the 2 short spears. Whoosh! Chang Sun swung his whip powerfully toward the drake's head. When it heard the weapon's sharp crack, the drake tried to pull its head back. However, before it could get out of the way, Chang Sun separated the whip into 2 strands that coiled around the 2 ends of the short spears in the drake's eyes. Chang Sun yanked hard, sending the spears flying through the air along with the drake's ruined eyeballs. Rohar! The pain the drake felt from having its eyes pulled out was much greater than what it had felt upon their destruction. As it howled and writhed, Chang Sun jumped into the air, snatching the 2 spears and combining them into one. Clack! When the 2 joints interlocked with each other, the blade in the spear's rear end retracted, and the one in its front end lengthened. From an ordinary long spear, it had instantly turned into a glaive. Pointing the spear downward, Chang Sun drove it into the drake's nape. Stab! Squirt! The spear embedded itself into a part of the drake's neck that was not covered in scales with such force that half of the blade disappeared into the monster's body. Roar! Trying to shake Chang Sun off its nape somehow, the drake writhed violently and spun its tail fiercely like a cow trying to force a fly off its back. However, Chang Sun had already finished preparing his next attack, pulling out his spear and retreating far away from the drake. Swoosh, swoosh. Slash, slash, slash. Stab. Swiftly avoiding the drake's attacks, Chang Sun continued to unleash perfect attack after perfect attack, only striking the monster's joints that remained unprotected by its scales. Roar! Roar! Several wounds large and small appeared on the drake's body, causing large pools of its blood to gather on the floor. The spectators could hear Chang Sun's footsteps splashing through the blood as he ran swiftly across the floor. Unbelievable, what are those weapons? How can a level 25 player be that fast? Every hit effect from his attacks is gold. Wait, doesn't that mean all of his attacks are critical hits? Is he really a human? Monster. The spectators gaped. The sound of Chang Sun's steps was like the footfalls of the Grim Reaper, both to the drake and the audience watching the one-sided massacre. As the drake's body was increasingly covered with cuts, it became slower and slower. The skill blood toxin has been activated. Paralytic toxin spreads throughout the drake's body. The drake has fallen into the paralyzed state. Deadly toxin spreads throughout the drake's body. The drake has fallen into the poisoned state. The drake has fallen into the brink of death state due to excessive bleeding. As Chang Sun continuously attacked the drake with his blood toxin, the monster's wounds only worsened, causing more and more damage to it. Thump. In the end, one of the drake's hind legs gave out, and it hit the ground with such a violent tremor that even Chang Sun felt the aftershocks for some time. It was no longer the same violent drake from before, as its entire body was covered with bruises and cuts. Pant. Pant. Wheeze. The drake's breathing was shallow and ragged, but it howled plaintively with its last reserves of strength, seemingly unwilling to die just like that. However, Chang Sun climbed onto the drake's head, almost seeming to be mocking it as he shoved his long spear into one of the eye sockets he had previously stabbed with a short spear. Shank. Chang Sun drove his long spear so deep into the drake's head that he directly penetrated its brain, piercing through what little remained of its eye. Sirrr. With its dying breath, the drake's head fell to the floor with a powerful thud. Successfully killed the drake. Level up. Level up. The level of the skill, lesser spearmanship, has increased. The Celestial, a good season to hunt, speaks high praise of your hunting skill, which has been leveling up day by day. As a bonus reward, your strength has increased by 5 points. Perhaps because Chang Sun had killed a monster that was at a much higher level than himself, successfully driving it into a corner as he hunted, he leveled up 2 times in a row. After withdrawing his long spear, Chang Sun turned to look in the executive's direction, completely covered the drake's blood. Despite his hideous appearance, his eyes shone ferociously. Some of the more old-fashioned executives frowned. To them, Chang Sun appeared to be arrogantly showing off his ability. However, the more aggressive executive's eyes shone just as brightly as Chang Sun's own. I definitely want that rookie. Bring him here, Chang.su. Team leader Sang.ho shouted as he sprang up from his seat. Yes, sir. Chang.su replied with a bow. Considering his combat instinct and his magic class, Chang Sun was a valuable asset that Sang.ho could use in combat right away. No, more than that, Chang Sun was a genius. The Celestial Calamity Tiger greatly admires the fight that took place just now. The Celestial Calamity Tiger strongly expresses his desire to have a new Fong. Above all, even Sang.ho's guardian was satisfied with Chang Sunday. That meant he had to snatch the man away before the other team leaders did, especially before the Attack Team 2 leader, who had recently become the biggest rival of Attack Team 1. Right after Sang.ho sent his assistant, his right-hand man. Swoosh. No way. Sang.ho muttered, frowning as he saw someone's shadow flying over his head. He realized he was too late, as the shadow fell directly onto Chang Sunday. Boom. Whoa, you can even block this, huh? Seo Jong Gwon, the Attack Team 2 leader, remarked. He smiled broadly, revealing his canines and seemingly enjoying the situation a great deal. The Celestial Calamity Tiger smiles viciously. Chang Sun glared at Jong Gwon, whose presence made him think of one word: ferocity. That was the most suitable word to describe Jong Gwon, who had revealed his strong desire to fight and kill Chang Sun, and on top of that, the man also reeked of Hyoju's disgusting stench. You can even take my tiger disaster on top of my tiger kill. You truly are something, even more than I expected, Jong Gwon remarked with a grin. I like you, so join my team. I'll train you real nicely and teach you what a real tiger is. It looked as if Jong Gwon would not stop attacking Chang Sun until he provided a proper answer. No, Jong Gwon would continue attacking Chang Sun to figure out the fullest extent of his abilities. Chang Sun pondered whether or not to fight back, because both options had advantages and disadvantages. He looked calmly at Jong Gwon as he thought, if I fight back, my value will increase and attract more of Hyoju's attention. Still, I should pull out all the stops in the Black Blood Mountain range, not here. Although he had intentionally avoided leveling up, Chang Sun had not spent the past month remaining idle, instead, he had been improving his basic skills and cultivating numerous abilities, in order to gain as much as he could from the new player training he would receive after he was done with the audition. The Black Blood Mountain Range was one of the many dungeons the White Tiger clan kept open. It was wide and divided into sectors with various difficulties, which meant it had been used as a training institute for some time. However, it held a great secret that was unknown to most people, even the White Tiger clan, and the dungeon's original Hyoju, were not aware of it. I can level up the fire of the 8 trigrams brazier in there. Chang Sun thought. Even as he continued thinking, however, Zhang Guan's endless barrage of attacks made him wonder whether it was finally time to counterattack. "Why don't you stop there?" a voice called out, as an even more ferocious man than Zhang Guan landed in between the two. Leaving 4 scratches on the floor that resembled the trail of a beast's claws, Zhang Guan quickly retreated far away from Chang Sun, turning to look at the man. He asked with a frown, "Do you want to die, Team Leader Park?" "I see the ignorant team leader too is still rude to his senior," team leader Sang Ho replied, smiling coldly as he emitted a tiger kill aura that was just as strong as Zhang Guan's own. Even though he looked like a normal middle-aged man, his pointed gaze remained incredibly sharp. "Ha! Just as you always say, I'm too ignorant to know what manners are," Zhang Guan replied with a smirk. "Why are you saying that with pride? Anyway, step away from him," Sang Ho said, waving a hand. "I'm taking one of mine away, so what's the problem?" Zhang Guan asked with a grin. "His personnel appointment hasn't been decided yet, has it?" Sang Ho replied, tilting his head. "PZZ, PZZZZ. Rumble." The clash of 2 tiger kill auras created a raging storm of energy inside Sector 3. What's going on? Are the attack team leaders fighting right now? They're doing that to recruit just one talented guy, right? Man, it's so cool. As Zhang Guan and team leader Sang Ho frequently appeared in the media, the spectators watched the fight with great interest. Worried that strange rumors would spread, several ordinary White Tiger clan employees tried to control the spectators, but it was not easy, as the fight was getting worse. "I'm sorry, but I have to join this fight too," a young man said as he stepped forward. "Whoa. I really didn't want to meddle in the 2 team leaders' fight." "Well, what can I do, since I want him to?" another man remarked as he stepped up, dragging his slippers across the floor as he scratched his head. The young man was Attack Team 3 leader Kong Song Wu, also known as Homotherium. The man who was scratching his head was Attack Team Leader 4 Yu Haiyan Jin, also known as Dinophelis. All 4 pillars of the attack department had stepped up. Unlike Zhang Guan, the Attack Team 3 and 4 leaders were polite to Team Leader Sang Ho, who was more experienced than them. Despite that, they each revealed their desire to never lose, revealing their tiger kill auras in turn. Swoosh, swish, whoosh. 4 tiger kill auras combined and created a fierce whirlpool, sweeping away everything on the floor of Sector C. "You bastards must think team leaders are all the same because the higher-ups coddle you guys, huh?" Team leader Sang Ho angrily snapped as he rummaged around in his inventory, raising an eyebrow. The fact that his juniors were challenging him hurt his pride. All the other team leaders opened their inventories. The 4 team leaders emanated so much energy, it was as if an all-out battle would break out at any second. The clash of 4 tiger kill auras made the atmosphere around the team leaders intensify constantly. Thus, Chang Sun furtively stepped back, watching the growing conflict with great interest. "I hope a bloodbath takes place," Chang Sun thought, his eyes shining. Chapter 34. Star, the Test, 5, you are listening at novelfull.audio. However, the bloodbath sadly, did not take place. Just as the violent aura of Tiger Kill was about to sweep over the applicants and the employees outside Sector C, a powerful wave, no, a storm, tore the Tiger Kill apart as if it were cutting silk with a single stroke. Slash. Cough. Arg. Erg. Cough. Is this executive? Executive director. Trembling, the 4 team leaders started to cough blood as if someone had hit them forcefully in the backs of their heads. The Team 3 leader, who was known to be the weakest among the 4, even collapsed on the floor, his face turning white. Tap. Tap. No one dared to move or speak at that moment. All those present silently held their breath, including the 4 team leaders, the employees, and the spectators. The only sound that filled the air was that of quiet footsteps, approaching the 4 team leaders. They belonged to a man who appeared to be in his 60s, around 160 centimeters tall. Despite his short stature, however, his presence was sufficient to overwhelm the crowd. It was as if his small body contained a veritable giant. He's the White Tiger Clan's second-in-command. Chang Sun realized. Executive Director Oh Shi Huan had built the current White Tiger Clan on behalf of Sword Sky Tiger, who was known to be a martial arts maniac. Shi Huan was also his right-hand man. Chang Sun had to be extremely wary of him while trying to destroy the White Tiger Clan. I did hear he was a high ranker, and I can see why. How should I hunt him? Chang Sun thought, mentally simulating battles against Executive Director Oh in order to figure out how to deal with him. Chang Sun ran the simulation multiple times, but the result was always the same. He lost every single time, unable to exchange more than 10 attacks. Even though he could not be certain of the outcome in a head-to-head battle against team leaders Zhang, Guan or Sang. Ho Chang Sun was confident that he would be able to exchange more than 100 attacks with them if he used various methods. However, it seemed that every tactic he had would be useless against Executive Director Oh. Chang Sun could not tell for sure whether he could approach Shi Huan, let alone hurt him. It was extremely difficult to find his weakness. The Celestial, a good season to hunt, widens her eyes, saying you could have a good fight against this man. I was wondering why the testing site was so rowdy. TSK. You're all behaving so pathetically. How can you fight like children to recruit one person? Did you not think about the clan's image? Executive Director Oh yelled at the top of his lungs. His voice was far louder than his size suggested, his yell sounded like rumbling thunder. Rumble. The applicants all began struggling to breathe amid the suffocating atmosphere, breaking out into a cold sweat. Naturally, considering how much even those on the edges of Executive Director Oh's overwhelming pressure were suffering, it was far worse for the team leaders right in front of him. They all seemed about to collapse. How can you cause trouble instead of calming down your juniors despite being the oldest among the team leaders, Sang Ho. Executive Director Oh exclaimed, massaging his temples. Team leader Sang Ho's face turned pale. Although he badly wanted to defend himself, he had just entered a fight with his juniors, so he could say little in response. Meanwhile, Zhang Guan's face lit up. He assumed Executive Director Oh would put Chang Sun in his team, as they belonged to the same faction. Although he hid his true feelings, he thought smugly, ha 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 ha. I'll get to see that annoying team leader Park's face crumpling up. All of you, get lost. I don't want to even see you anymore. Executive Director Oh severely scolded the 4 team leaders, making them retreat with their tails tucked between their legs. However, they continued to furtively study each other's faces, unable to let go of their lingering feelings about Chang. Sunday. Executive Director Oh added, raising a finger. Wondering what he was trying to say, the 4 team leaders nervously looked back at him. However, Executive Director Oh remained expressionless as he continued, about that rookie who's the cause of all this mess. If I let one team take the rookie, the attack teams might end up on bad terms with each other, so I have no choice. I'll take him. Executive Director Oh unilaterally declared, then looked away and lightly cleared his throat as if he were suddenly feeling awkward. The 4 team leaders gaped, thinking simultaneously, he got us. After all the commotion in the testing site had settled down, Chang Sun followed Executive Director Oh to his office on his request. Sit in any chair you want. I'll give you tea, Executive Director Oh said, gesturing at Chang Sun to sit. The celestial, Calamity Tiger, observes you with eyes filled with desire. The celestial, a good season to hunt, feels agitated and yells at Calamity Tiger to get out. Despite being told by Executive Director Oh to relax, Chang Sun could not do so. In fact, he was more on edge than he had ever been at the testing site, because Hyoju never stopped observing him. Pablesag repeatedly yelled at Hyoju to get lost, but unlike the time she had shouted at Rumungandra or Mephistopheles, she somehow seemed to lack energy. Perhaps it was because Chang Sun had willingly entered Hyoju's territory. The celestial, a good season to hunt, anxiously observes you. While Jade at Rumungandra suspected that Chang Sun was plotting something, Mephistopheles and Minerva left Chang Sun alone, seeming as if they would not stop him even if he decided to choose Hyoju as his guardian. However, Pablesag remained on edge. I've already heard a lot about you. Okay, so your magic class is SSS+++, which is ridiculously high, and you also passed the tutorial with a sky-high score, right? My guardian is also very interested in you. Executive Director Oh said, giving Chang Sun a cup of tea as he sat down across the sofa. Clink. When Chang Sun picked up the cup, he was met with the pungent scent of rooibos tea. Although Executive Director Oh spoke casually, Chang Sun's eyes shone with interest as he listened. He can directly listen to what the deity is saying. He must have a high rank, like a bishop or a cardinal. Chang Sun thought. Many players could listen to a deity's words through the system messages, but only those who were close to a deity had the ability to directly listen to their words. They were known as oracles. Having that ability meant Executive Director Oh was favored by Hyoju. Considering the fact that he was the White Tiger clan's second-in-command, it was a given. However, what truly mattered at the moment was that Hyoju had directly mentioned Chang Sun to his people. I hooked him real good. I got off to a great start. Chang Sun thought as he quietly sipped his tea. For the time being, he had achieved all the goals he had previously planned on. So I'll cut to the chase. Do you want anything? Executive Director Oh asked, intertwining his fingers. The offer to grant Chang Sun anything he wanted was like a blank check, which made him wonder what the best answer would be. Would it be better to look shrewd or arrogant? If he went with looking humble, he would leave a good impression, but Executive Director Oh could end up suspecting him of plotting something strange. Then. To be honest, I don't really care about money, Chang Sun said, putting down his teacup. He thought, I'll just be straightforward, then. Executive Director Oh smiled faintly and replied, that's noble, but I've never seen anyone who doesn't like money. Even when they seemed not to, they often turned out to be plotting something behind my back. Well, I already have too much money to use in my entire lifetime, and my family is also well off, Chang Sun said casually. Executive Director Oh did not answer, which made Chang Sun suspect the director had already done his research beforehand. I just want to do whatever I want, Chang Sun said with a smile. Why does that sound as if you'll resign right away if you don't get to do whatever you want? Executive Director Oh asked, crossing his legs. Seemingly lacking any sense of sadness or lingering attachment, Chang Sun replied with a shrug, many other clans will want me. Really, I only applied to the White Tiger clan because it's the biggest in Korea. To be honest, what Chang Sun had just said made sense from an outsider's perspective. Even the major clans of other countries would compete with each other to recruit a player who was as talented as Chang Sunday. Executive Director Oh's smile widened. Even though some people would call Chang Sun arrogant, he loved young, hot-blooded individuals more than anyone else, as someone who had worked tirelessly in the field to build the current White Tiger clan. His favorite phrase was, "A beast needs sharp fangs and claws." From what he was seeing, Chang's son looked like the very embodiment of that phrase. "Alright. I'll grant your requests if they're not too excessive, so what do you want to do?" Executive Director O asked, leaning back in his seat. "I want to join the Future Strategy Department," Chang's son calmly answered. Seemingly not having expected Chang's son's answer, Executive Director O's eyes widened in surprise. He asked, "Do you know what the department does?" "Yes, I do," Chang's son replied with a nod. "I thought you would join the attack team department for sure." "This is a surprise," Executive Director O remarked, stroking his chin. The White Tiger Clan's attack team department, which was made up of 4 attack teams, was under the clan leader's direct supervision. That made it the face and main star of the clan. Consequently, its members could gain many privileges from working in the field. However, the Future Strategy Department was different. It was akin to the clan's spine and brain, the power source of the giant beast named the White Tiger Clan. Thus, unlike the attack teams, they were not exposed to the public. Instead, they oversaw and inspected the White Tiger Clan's general affairs. From time to time, they themselves worked in the field, but only off the record. They were a group of advisors, sometimes known as shadows. Players who wanted to be famous usually applied for the attack department, not the Future Strategy Department. Thus, Chang's son's answer left Executive Director O quite shocked. "I'll be able to climb the corporate ladder much faster that way, because I'll be able to observe the clan's power dynamics and structure in detail." Chang's son thought. By attaining as many achievements as possible in the Future Strategy Department, Chang's son intended to become the Future Strategy Department head in the shortest period of time and climb the corporate ladder in the White Tiger Clan. The moment Chang's son stood beside Sword Sky Tiger as the clan's second-in-command after beating Executive Director O and gaining Hyoju's special favor, he would then start attacking the clan. He would tear apart the White Tiger Clan and make Hyoju plummet to rock bottom. After that, he would break Hyoju's limbs and shove him into the underworld's abyss so Hyoju could never return to heaven. "I don't really like to follow people's orders like a tool, so I want a position in which I can move independently and make my own judgments," Chang's son said, trying to sound as ambitious as possible while hiding his sinister plans. As he was not lying, he spoke without hesitation. "From what I've heard, the Future Strategy Department doesn't have a hierarchy aside from the department head." "You're right. Depending on the project, teams can temporarily be formed, but they really are temporary. As there's no hierarchy, however, there's more pressure to produce results. A player who's been working for 10 years can be fired right away if they make a mistake," Executive Director O said with a nod. "The world I lived in was similar," Chang's son remarked, his eyes shining. "You always have something to say, don't you?" Executive Director O said with a grin. "Above all, I've heard the Future Strategy Department is under your direct supervision," Executive Director O, Chang's son said as he set down his teacup. "Are you already trying to flatter me?" Executive Director O asked, adjusting his posture. "I'm just trying to make a connection with the true power in the White Tiger Clan," Chang's son replied with a shrug. "It sounds as if you'll have zero interest in me if I lose power in the clan," Executive Director O said, tilting his head. Chang's son merely smiled without speaking. Executive Director O chuckled and said, "Well, you seem to have enough motivation to join the department. Fine, I'll assign you to the Future Strategy Department as you wish." Chang's son's eyes sparkled with excitement as he finally got what he wanted. "Still, it won't be easy for me to just assign you to the department, even though it's under my supervision. To even be considered a candidate, a player needs to have a solid background and to have been working in the clan for a minimum of 5 years, Executive Director O added, tapping on the sofa. Chang's son understood the underlying meaning behind Executive Director O's words. Not easy did not mean impossible. He asked without hesitation, "What do I need to do?" Executive Director O burst into laughter and replied, "Indeed, you're a fast learner. What you need to do is very simple. You just need to distinguish yourself enough to make people unable to raise any objections when I say I trust you. Well, they might still talk behind your back, though. Chang Sun said, I heard new recruits would be trained in the Black Blood Mountain Range on probation, regardless of the departments they'll be assigned to. Would achieving a new record in the dungeon be enough? Are you saying you're going to achieve a whole new record in the dungeon ranking, not just the first place among the employees who joined the clan at the same time as you? Executive Director O asked in disbelief. Yes, I'll achieve a new record in the dungeon ranking, Chang Sun confirmed. No one should raise any objections then, Executive Director O said hesitantly, in contrast to his previous confident tone, that implied he wanted something else. What did he want, however? In such scenarios, people usually wanted to get rid of their old problems. I'll also clear the dungeon, Chang Sun confidently added, instantly realizing what Executive Director O wanted. He did not fail to notice Executive Director O's eyes shining as he said those words. There's something in the Black Blood Mountain Range. Chang Sun thought, making plans to investigate the dungeon further. There could be something inside that he could use against Executive Director O. To be honest, the dungeon has remained open for too long, so it's time for the clan to pick a different dungeon to use as a training site, Executive Director O remarked. Then I'll just close the dungeon on my own, Chang Sun said, hinting that he would make it look as if he had been acting on his own or cleared the dungeon by accident. I think I'll be able to speak with complete candor from now on, Executive Director O said as he smiled again. It meant he had understood Chang Sun's hidden message. Thank you, Chang Sun said, smiling along with Executive Director O. Unlike the other man's pleasant smile, his own smile was cold and sly. How could Executive Director O possibly know that Chang Sun had actually wanted that exact response? Chapter 35 Star, the Black Mountain King, 1, you are listening at novelfull.audio. The news article's 5-word title appeared on numerous web portals and was mentioned among various internet communities. For days, Chang Sun and Chang Sunday related topics were on every web portal's most searched word lists. Number 1. Li Chang Sun. Number 2. Tyrant. Number 3. White Tiger Clan Sector. See video clip number 4. The Return of Li Chang Sun. Number 10. The Mysterious Man. Various comment sections were on the verge of crashing due to the constant flood of comments. My Bro returns. Li Chang Sun has been ranked number 1 on the most searched word list for 4 consecutive days. My Bro Tyrant has returned. NuaYXE. Turn up the music. Grim Reaper. Is he seriously SSS+++? Man, I feel so patriotic right now. Whoa. Bartender. Gimme a bowl of Macchiali. Second Life Ranker. Everyone who criticized Chang Sun on the air for being an alcoholic is quiet now, right? YouTubers are already busy taking down their videos criticizing Chang Sun. LOL. By the way, the video of his test is really insane. The Tyrant hater communities say all the videos have been fabricated. The fact that the Tyrant haters are idiots isn't new. Overthrow government. Does anyone still believe the news articles about the Tyrant? TSK. How can you not know that the government has fabricated those videos to cover up the Jamsil Gate incident? Conspiracy theorists really exist. The major 20 clans have become idiots instantly. LOL, and his SSS+++ magic grade just became a conspiracy. Hey, just go home, wash your feet, and sleep instead of posting this kind of comment. Cheonyang religion. I'm worried about the Tyrant fans running amok again. They finally calmed down, you know. How are we going to deal with them, God? It just crossed my mind and I'm a little bit scared now. The public always needed new heroes, and the press always needed new subjects to put in the spotlight. At that moment, Chang Sun was the best fit for both criteria. The nickname Tyrant was so famous worldwide that even people who were unfamiliar with online games had heard it. However, that hero had tragically become an alcoholic after getting into a fight with his gaming club and being forced to retire. And yet, such a hero had returned brilliantly with a magic grade higher than SSS, a grade that itself only appeared once a decade. Of course, overseas media companies were busy writing many news articles about Chung, Sun, and Korean media was no different. Double chapter Adora. The White Tiger Clan stock price has skyrocketed over the past 3 days. Let's buy their stocks on margin. Let's go. If you guys did that, all of you could end up having a get together in Hangang River, so just make diversified investments to the best of your ability. Bowling Man. I heard Lee Chung, Sun was the one who closed the Jamsil Gate. Is it true? Stories about the Jamsil Gate had slowly leaked to the public, resulting in a common hypothesis that Chung, Sun was the urban legend, mysterious man L. It was plausible. Chung, Sun lived in Jamsil, and the time period of Chung, Sun's awakening overlapped with the Jamsil Gate's opening. The initial L added credibility to the hypothesis. Still, there were people who had dismissed the idea because no official announcement had been made, so public opinion about the Jamsil Gate had been split in two. Suddenly, however, an interview published by a major news outlet sent the world into an uproar once again. The survivor had introduced herself as Miss Wu, 15 years old, and explained in detail what had happened in the Jamsil Gate, the story of which had been kept confidential. The dungeon's difficulty level had been raised significantly after the sudden appearance of an administrator, which meant Second Lieutenant Park Hae-sung had needed to use any means necessary to save as many people as possible. However, John Chung-jae had satisfied his own greed by manipulating people, but Chung, Sun had fought against John Chung-jae to save all those people. Of course, the people involved had only been referred to by their initials or aliases, but some quick-witted internet users soon successfully figured out who they were. As a result, Second Lieutenant Hae-sung became a star overnight, and Chung, Sun earned the ridiculous nickname of Jamsil Hero, in addition to Tyrant. Due to those incidents, the public's interest in Chung, Sun grew day by day. Many press companies put in a great deal of effort to interview Chung, Sun, but their attempts were futile, only causing a great deal of trouble. The White Tiger Clan had begun protecting Chung, Sun from the press perfectly. His family members, who were already known for avoiding the press, likewise refused to cooperate. Thus, most news articles about Chung, Sun were tabloids. Despite the current situation, people craved news about Chung, Sun, which meant they paid attention to the White Tiger Clan. News about how Chung, Sun had joined the White Tiger Clan after accepting an excellent remuneration package quickly wore out its welcome, and the whole world began focusing on speculation as to how the White Tiger Clan would use Chung, Sun's talent. ****, give him to me. Seo Jong-gwon shouted loudly. No, I won't, Executive Director Oh replied, firmly shaking his head. Damn, why do you keep saying no? He's truly something, you know. He needs a mentor like me to make his life much easier. Jong-gwon yelled, his voice filling Executive Director Oh's office like a train's horn. Massaging his temples, Executive Director Oh watched his unwelcome guest Jong-gwon, who had been pestering him for 4 days in a row. Although he desperately wanted to kick Jong-gwon out of his office, he could not do so. He knew Jong-gwon would return right away and throw a tantrum on the office floor. Despite his muscular stature, Jong-gwon kept whining like a 5-year-old child continuously asking for a lollipop. There's no way his life will be easier. You'll make his currently peaceful life hell, Executive Director Oh remarked, clicking his tongue. Ah, Hyung. Give him to me. Jong-gwon screamed, seemingly having lost all his patience. Although he had promised to never call Executive Director Oh Hyung while they were working in the clan, Jong-gwon had just done so. In truth, they were cousins who were as close as brothers, because they had often met each other since they were children. It was also Executive Director Oh who had made Jong-gwon a player, before Jong-gwon went down the wrong path due to his violent temper. That was why Jong Guan felt comfortable enough around Executive Director O to throw such a fit. He was determined to have Chang Sun on his team. After deciding to recruit Chang Sun at the testing site, he had been trying to achieve his goal the entire time. Naturally, Executive Director O remained firm, replying, "No, I won't. Arga. Why can't you just let me have him if your Dongseng is this desperate to have Chang Sun on his team?" Zhang Guan protested. "We're working in the clan right now, so behave, or else I'm going to strip you of your rank as a team leader," Executive Director O replied, glaring at Zhang Guan. "Shit. Why do you keep saying no?" Zhang Guan exclaimed, stamping his foot. "I told you multiple times, I can't do anything because more press than I can handle is focusing on us," Executive Director O said, lightly massaging his eyes after throwing his glasses onto the desk. He continued, "Besides, he already applied for the Future Strategy Department and said he'd resign if things don't work out his way, so how am I supposed to make him join Attack Team 2? Still." Zhang Guan attempted to protest once more. "Besides, our guardian strongly wants to make Chang Sun his priest, so what would happen if he quit the clan? Are you going to deal with our guardian's anger?" Executive Director O asked solemnly. As the matter of their guardian had been brought up, Zhang Guan could say nothing in protest, silently expressing his annoyance instead. Executive Director O felt a migraine coming on. If only his aunt had not asked him to take care of that little rascal as her dying wish. That rascal was already over 50, but he was still acting like a child, making Executive Director O's life difficult. He would have kicked Zhang Guan out of the clan if not for the other man's talent as a player. "I have no other choice, because he's still pretty useful. I'll have to give him a good carrot," Executive Director O thought, tapping his desk. His life was already difficult enough because the Hyoff clan's remnants had gone into hiding. He was left in disbelief that had to deal with such a trivial thing. Peter's key. I could only excuse giving this matter less attention if I knew the exact whereabouts of the key. TSK, he thought while trying to piece some facts together. Eventually, he asked with a smile, "Did you think I would just stand by even though you're that interested in Li Chang Sun, though?" Just then, Zhang Guan's angrily puffed up cheeks deflated a little. He quietly asked, "Then, when Chang Sun finishes his training period and leaves probation, he'll be one of our own, so I can send him on missions I choose. Who's going to work together with him the most in those missions?" Executive Director O replied softly. "Ah!" Zhang Guan exclaimed, his expression brightening after he realized what Executive Director O meant. Simpleton, Executive Director O thought, desperately holding back his desire to say the word out loud. Instead, he snapped, "So stop bugging me and get lost. I have to get some work done." He. "Hyung, you know I love you a lot, right?" Zhang Guan replied with a silly smile. "You don't have to love me. Just get out." Executive Director O replied, pointing at the door. Zhang Guan giggled as he ran through the door. Afterward, Executive Director O thought he could finally rest, at least, until Zhang Guan suddenly returned to his office. "Ah, I have one more question," Zhang Guan began with the same goofy grin. "What now?" Executive Director O asked, massaging his temples. "Where's Li Chang? Sunday? I tried really hard, but I couldn't find him," Zhang Guan said, hopping around Executive Director O's desk. "Is that any of your business?" Executive Director O replied with a sigh. "Come on, don't do this. Let's share information," Zhang Guan said, nudging Executive Director O. "I figured you would look for him, so I already locked him up in the place you hate the most," Executive Director O replied. This time, he was the one grinning. Zhang Guan quietly tilted his head in confusion, unsure what place Executive Director O was referring to. Considering his personality, he had always gone through the clan's head office as if it were his front yard. He could not fathom what Executive Director O was talking about. However, it seemed he would get no more information no matter how he asked. Meanwhile, Chung Sun entered the White Tiger clan's Fierce Tiger Library with the guidance of Executive Director O's subordinate. It was totally different from the library that the clan opened to the public. It did not contain any ordinary books, instead containing spellbooks and weapon skill books. Wasn't Hyoju also a troublemaker in heaven? Thanatos asked Chung Sunday. He was, Chung Sun replied with a nod. Then what are the followers who have his blessing like? Thanatos asked gently. They'll also have made many enemies, Chung Sun realized. They haven't just made many enemies, but also completely destroyed their enemies' pride. After pillaging and seizing those foes' treasures, they gathered and opened a grand exhibition, advertising their trophies as a way of spreading their guardian's glory, Thanatos replied, shaking his head. Describing Hyoju and his followers as peas in a pod, Thanatos had smiled coldly. The grand exhibition he had mentioned was in the Fierce Tiger Library. The clan had gathered and recorded the goods they had seized from the people they fought. The Fierce Tiger Library was a monument to commemorate the clan's victories. Among other things was filled with various kinds of books. Naturally, it contained some beginner skill books and spell books. Apart from that, it contained ancient books from another world, containing weapon skills that had been passed down for generations, as well as fortune books that contained the teachings of various celestials. It even had several high-level skill books. In addition, even though they were often considered miscellaneous items, several heroic epics were also stored within. All the books were divided into 7 categories, and those categories required different levels of clearance for the clan's employees. As Chung Sun was just on probation and had not even finished his training, he would normally only be able to access the Tier 7 library. However, until a week before the training period, he had been granted special permission by Executive Director O to access up to the Tier 3 library. Judging from the fact that you told me about the exhibition, I have something to gain from it, don't I? Chung Sun asked Thanatos. It's not easy to recommend anything specific because I don't know what kind of skill tree you'll end up building, but I can give you a list of useful skills, Thanatos replied, stroking his chin. I'll just pick on my own, Chung Sun said, scratching his head. There is one skill you'll definitely be interested in, Thanatos said, lifting a finger. What's that? Chung Sun asked with great interest. The movement skills of the Sagittarius, Thanatos replied with a grin. Chung Sun had been completely dumbstruck when he heard Thanatos' response. Sagittarius Ruckbat was the fastest zodiac. His 6 movement skills enabled him to move at the speed of light. They were no ordinary authorities, rather, they were divine authorities, the envy of countless celestials. Traceless steps. Sky soaring. Reed crossing. Vaulting shadow. Leaf treading. An Avatar's descent. Chung Sun thought, recalling Sagittarius' last movement skill. If Sagittarius ever found out that Hyoju had one of his movement skills, he would be more than capable of waging war against Hyoju and the clan under him. However, that had not happened, which meant Sagittarius did not know. Perhaps even Hyoju did not know he had committed such a ridiculous act. Where did you hear that information from? Chung Sun asked with great curiosity. Who do you think? Thanatos replied, smiling cheekily. Chung Sun replied. In any event, there was no way Chung Sun would ever let one of Sagittarius' movement skills sit in the Fierce Tiger Library after discovering its location. That was why he had never tried to learn any movement skills, even though he had been steadily pursuing a variety of offensive and weapon-related skills. I have to acquire Avatar's Descent from this library, but it won't be easy. Chung Sun thought, taking a quick look through the library. Avatar's Descent was the authority that had made Ruckbat one of the zodiacs, Sagittarius. It was a divine authority he had created even before he had become a star by stealing a glance at the Deus Ex Machina. He had witnessed the using their signature authority, sovereign's descent, in the ancient past of the universe, a time that looked nothing like the current universe. Whenever Sagittarius used Avatar's descent, he could instantly gain control of a certain region in space and project his divinity within it, enabling him to act as an absolute being within that space. From what Chang Sun had heard, the rest of the zodiacs did not like even allowing Sagittarius into their general vicinity. If I can just get my hands on that divine authority, no one will be able to stop me after I transcend and awaken my divinity. Chang Sun thought, clenching his fists. Thus, he had to have the divine authority. However, there was one problem. The celestial calamity tiger observes your every movement. Hyoju himself was watching Chang Sunday. 1. The Raw was. This is a very popular meme in Korea. Whenever a Korean feels incredibly proud of someone from Korea, they say they've gotten. Literally, high on patriotism. They express their happiness by calling out to. An integral part of the Korean traditional pubs, which are called. 2. Hangang River was once known as a famous suicide spot. Chapter 36. Star, the Black Mountain King. 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You can use the library for a week, and it is open at all times. Aside from the forbidden Tier 1 and 2 libraries, you'll be able to use all the others, but please keep in mind that you are not allowed to take the books outside. Executive Director O's subordinate slowly explained the library regulations, then offered to find the books on Chang Sun's behalf if he wanted any specific one. The subordinate appeared to be acting considerate, but because Chang Sun knew the man was Executive Director O's watchdog, he simply replied, "Thank you, Executive Director O and Hyoju. I'll definitely have to be careful to avoid their surveillance." Chang Sun thought as he entered the fierce tiger library. The first thing that caught his eye was the sheer size of the library, which was completely filled with towering bookcases full of books. If the Tier 7 library alone was this large, Chang Sun could not even begin to imagine the size of the higher Tier 1s. It was a testament to just how many clans the White Tiger clan had plundered and swallowed up. From what I've heard, the clan copied the Horn tribe's skill archive, so taking a look around the library should be quite interesting, Thanatos said, his eyes sparkling with interest. Recalling what Thanatos had said, Chang Sun took a deep breath, his eyes widening. The skill Unbending Spirit has been activated. The skill Composed Spirit has been activated. The 2 bonus rewards given by Minerva were not only good for finding inner peace, but also for enhancing a person's concentration. Focusing completely on the books he had gathered, Chang Sun began to read. I have no idea what he's doing. Song Yu Jun, Executive Director O's secretary, thought. He tilted his head as he watched Chang Sunday. Yu Jun had already heard a lot about Chang Sun. No, he had been unable to avoid hearing news about Chang Sun, who was the center of the world's attention at the moment. Chang Sun was the first genius with a ridiculous SSS+++ magic grade to appear in many decades. Even though he was a novice, he alone had cleared the Jamsil Gate, the unpredictable gate, that made him a hero whom the White Tiger clan's executives could not help but pay attention to. Even Yu Jun's girlfriend had asked him to get Chang Sun's signature after he told her that he was assigned to temporarily assist Chang Sunday. Yu Jun would be lying if he said he was not jealous at all. However, the only impression he had gotten while guiding Chang Sun over the past several days was that it was hard to know what the man was thinking. Chang Sun was certainly very handsome, it was to the point that even Yu Jun, another man, found it startling. However, Chang Sun had a cold, mostly expressionless demeanor, making him seem difficult to approach. On top of that, he was so quiet that Yu Jun had exchanged less than 10 words with him, making it quite difficult to befriend him. Although Yu Jun tried to convince himself that it was all because Chang Sun was too focused on reading. He could not be certain that Chang Sun was truly reading, as the other man chose books seemingly at random. Sometimes Chang Sun read about spearmanship, and other times, he read about swordsmanship. He also studied some movement skill books. He even read books about simple breathing methods and legends about certain deities. Chang Sun simply walked past bookcases and read any books that caught his attention, but he only skimmed through most of them without taking a closer look. However, when one of them caught his interest, he sat down where he was and spent 6 hours perusing every detail. After he finished reading that book, he chose another one that looked similar to the book he had just read. However, just as Jun thought Chang Sun was about to concentrate again, Chang Sun simply stopped and returned it to the bookcase without finishing it, clicking his tongue. "What am I supposed to report to Executive Director O?" Jun silently screamed. Executive Director O had ordered Jun to observe what kinds of books Chang Sun usually read and whether he did anything suspicious, then to report in detail. The more time passed, the more trouble Jun felt he would be in. After all, he needed some actual information in order to write a report. If he had to name one thing that was unusual, it was that Chang Sun had barely left the library after hearing that it was open at all times. Chang Sun slept fewer than 4 hours a day while inside, making Jun wonder whether he had literally made the library his new home. "Please let me go home." "Shit." Jun thought, feeling displeased. He badly wanted to ask a colleague to substitute for him, but Executive Director O would rain hell on him if he did so, leaving him with no other choice. Jun could still relieve his fatigue with his magic, but it was torture for him to do nothing but watch Chang Sun without doing anything else. Considering how he had not even been able to call his girlfriend, she could even end up breaking up with him soon. "Ah, I'm so sad I was sway.by such a pretentious guy as this." Jun thought plaintively. He was sure that Chang Sun was only staying cooped up in the library to look cool to other people. No one could look cooler than a talented person who continued to train their skills. Jun believed he was a mere victim of Chang Sun's scheme, and that it would never end until Chang Sun had to leave the library for the probationary training period. "I'm so depressed. Jun thought gloomily as he looked at Chang Sunday. Despite what Jun thought, Chang Sun was actually so focused, he felt almost as if steam had begun coming out of his head. "You have entered the focused state. You are so absorbed in reading that you will be able to understand and memorize most of the knowledge you learn from now on. You have entered the absorbed state. The speed at which you learn knowledge has increased. You have become better able to read between the lines and understand difficult words. You have fallen into the mad state. Warning. You have learned too much knowledge, overloading your resource. You are about to develop a headache. Warning. You have greatly exceeded the amount of knowledge a human can learn. You are recommended to take a break. Achievement unlocked. Book fanatic, no, fast. A tick. Effect. Intelligence +10. Willpower +5. Title, Book Fanatic. The Celestial, a good season to hunt, counts the number of books you have read with a look of disgust. The Celestial World, encircling serpent, wonders what information you have learned. Sagittarius, Avatar's descent, was not the only thing Chang Sun was looking for. He also wanted to find Hyoju's skill tree, the web of karma that embodied his power. The skills Hyoju allowed the clan to have must be rooted in his myths. Although they can't possibly hold a candle to his apostles' authorities, my hunt will be a whole lot easier if I can at least find some clues as to the clan members' authorities. Chang Sun thought as he continued to read. Skills and authorities did not appear out of thin air, they were created by each deity throughout their life. As such, they were symbols that echoed the original owner's divinity. Thus, if Chang Sun could take a peek at Hyoju's skill tree, he would be able to find Hyoju's weakness much more easily. Unlike ordinary celestials, Chang Sun had transcended from mortality through nothing but diligent self-cultivation. that meant he was well aware of how various skill trees were formed and how the skills all affected each other. From the start, the Fierce Tiger Library had been built as a display of Hyoju's glory. Apart from that, however, it was also the White Tiger clan's sanctum, imparting Hyoju's teachings to the clan's members. For that reason, the books in the library had to contain the skills that made up Hyoju's skill tree. Consequently, Chang.Sun's current plan was to find the pieces of Hyoju's skill tree and complete the puzzle named Hyoju. If I finish analyzing his skill tree, then I can not only find the White Tiger clan and Hyoju's weakness, but also find the weaknesses of the beings behind Hyoju. Chang.Sun thought as he picked up another book. Of course, each skill would only be a minuscule part of Hyoju's entire skill tree, but Chang.Sun was confident that he would be able to see a bigger picture in those parts. A bit of knowledge has been acquired. Your understanding of Calamity Tiger has deepened. A fragment of knowledge has been acquired. Your understanding of Calamity Tiger has deepened. The celestial Calamity Tiger watches you with interest. Despite what was happening, the very being whose weaknesses were being exposed laughed, feeling proud of Chang.Sun without realizing what his plan was. Idiot! Chang.Sun thought derisively. Of course, he did not truly think Hyoju was an idiot would never be able to reach Hyoju's current level. He needed to catch Hyoju's eye and gain his complete trust. The more he learned about Hyoju, the busier he became with compiling the knowledge he had acquired. Based on the bits and fragments of knowledge you have acquired, a new skill is about to be formed. Skill combination is in progress. 15. 16%. 35%. The phrase, new skill, was the most important thing to Chang.Sun at that moment. It was a sign that Chang.Sun was on the right track, enough for the system to recognize his knowledge as an entirely new skill. The skill Chang.Sun was trying to create was very simple, a nullification skill he could use on Hyoju. He was creating a natural enemy type skill that could nullify any skill that had been created and taught by Hyoju. As Chang.Sun had been on many battlefields, it was not difficult for him to create such a skill with the right basic materials. Of course, Chang.Sun would still be at a disadvantage in a fight against a high ranker such as Sword Sky Tiger, but he could save the skill as his ace in the hole, eventually using it to turn the tables after he closed the power gap between him and the high rankers. Skill combination progress. 39%. Although Chang.Sun had made substantial progress in skill combination, when he proceeded with the skill combination to some level, the period of temporary access to the library granted to him by Executive Director O eventually neared its end. This must mean I can only develop the nullification skill to this extent with the information in the Tier 3 library. What I have to do from now on is gain access to the Tier 1 and 2 libraries and learn the rest of Hyoju's skill tree through the skills I can gain from earning achievements. Chang.Sun wished he could have made more progress toward creating the skill, but he did not have any lingering regrets about that objective, as he had done everything he could. It isn't here. However, Chang.Sun soon realized that, even though he had nearly achieved his second priority plan successfully, he had failed to achieve his number one priority. I went through the library 3 times, but I really can't find Avatar's Descent. Chang.Sun thought with a sigh upon realizing he had 3 hours left. Is it really in the Tier 1 or 2 library then? Well, despite how poor Hyoju. And his buffoon's judgment is, I guess they wouldn't have left such a book in a lower tier library. Chang.Sun thought, tilting his head. Perhaps they had stored the skill book in a separate place after realizing it was extraordinary. After all, Thanatos had only been able to find out that one of Sagittarius' divine authorities had ended up in the White Tiger clan's exhibition. Regardless, it was still disappointing. Should I take a last look around? Chang.Sun thought. Considering how Hyoju and his buffoons had failed to notice that Avatar's Descent was in the library until now, there was also a distinct possibility that the divine authority was encrypted with such complicated passwords that taking a quick glance at the books would not be enough to find it. As such, Chang Sun thought he could have missed something. There was no telling when he would be able to visit the Fierce Tiger Library again, so he needed to do everything he could. If it's written in a language or symbols that are hard to understand, many people would consider the book a miscellaneous item written by a pretentious author. In that case, there's a high chance that the book is stored in the Tier 7 library. Chang Sun thought, stroking his chin. After coming to that conclusion, Chang Sun began taking a closer look at several books he had disregarded, thinking it unnecessary to read through them. From old encyclopedias that looked so useless they made him wonder why on earth they were in the library, to shabby antique books that had lost most of their pages, he read everything he could find. Chang Sun's eyes ached so much that he felt as if they would pop out of their sockets, their veins bulging, his brain felt as if it were on fire. The skill, unbending spirit has reached the breaking point. The skill, composed spirit forces you to refocus your wandering concentration, reinforcing your willpower. The celestial, Twilight, piercing owl, commends you for your remarkable willpower. Suddenly. I got it. Chang Sun thought excitedly. He realized he had found something magnificent. Badump. Badump. With adrenaline coursing through his body, Chang Sun felt his corrosive fatigue instantly disappear. The possibility of holding a zodiac's divine authority made his heart pound greatly. Still, he made an effort to regain his composure, as he could not be certain that the book was truly Sagittarius, Avatar's descent. However, he was sure it held an extraordinary secret. At first glance, it was a thick cookbook that was filled with boring explanations. However, when Chang Sun read it in reverse and in a specific pattern, it became completely different. However, what's this? Chang Sun thought, tilting his head in confusion. It was not Avatar's descent, the skill Chang Sun had been looking for. It was the will of a being who had been forgotten by the world for a long time. 1. The Hangul for this is literally the English resource. No explanation was given in the raw. 2. The raw was book maniac, no light. This is wordplay in the original Korean. Maniac has the same hanja as light. Chapter 37. Star, the Black Mountain King. 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Chang Sun read the very first paragraph, his eyes widened as he saw a familiar name, Munseong. It's talking about Sword Sky Tiger. Chang Sun thought in surprise. The 9 swordsmen were known as the greatest swordsmen in the world. One of their number, Munseong, was also Hyoju's apostle and the clan leader who had founded the White Tiger clan with executive director O. However, the author referred to Munseong as if he had been a close brother. If word got out, the book would no doubt shake the White Tiger clan members up, as Sword Sky Tiger was not just their leader. He was an idol they looked up to and tried to take after. Did Sword Sky Tiger have a family? Chang Sun thought, tilting his head in confusion. It was a well-known fact that Sword Sky Tiger had gained fame and prestige after working as a mercenary, which was a rare case even among players. After weathering many battles, he had created his own martial arts style and caught Hyoju's attention, to the point that the deity had made Sword Sky Tiger his apostle. However, that well-known fact seemed to be wrong, according to the book. The encrypted story went on for some time. As the heir of a secret clan, Hanyu had been training his swordsmanship for a long time. However, one day, his teacher had brought a boy over, making him Hanyu's junior brother. As his teacher was in bad health due to old age, Hanyu had raised his junior brother like a real brother, and even sometimes trained Munseong in swordsmanship on his teacher's behalf. According to Hanyu, his clan had chosen to seclude itself for an unknown reason. However, just as his divine name, Calamity Tiger, implied, Hyoju was a monster deity who liked war, chaos, and fear. Thus, there was no way he would have liked the clan's decision to seek peace. Of course, he could have chosen another apostle, however, Hanyu's clan upheld Hyoju's doctrines better than any other, making them the best choice to inherit his remaining power. Hyoju had had no choice but to grit his teeth, unable to choose another apostle. The previous apostle must have intentionally sealed Hyoju's power. Yeah, I once heard that Hyoju had temporarily become weakened and couldn't affect the Saha world. Chang Sun thought, managing to recall information about Hyoju with great difficulty. In his time as a fiend, Chang Sun had heard the news about Hyoju, however, he had quickly forgotten it. He had been curious as to why the war maniac had never showed up anywhere for about 100 years, but it seems Sword Sky Tiger's previous clan was responsible for Hyoju's disappearance. The more Hyoju's faith increases, the more chaos and disasters take place in the world. Hyoju's previous apostle must have thought he couldn't stay after seeing too much blood. Chang Sun thought. Of course, that was just Chang Sun's conjecture, however, he believed his hypothesis was close to the truth. Was that why Hyoju chose Munseong? No, Sword Sky Tiger, not Hanyu. Chang Sun thought as he continued to read. Although Sword Sky Tiger had betrayed his previous clan, he had not killed Hanyu, seemingly holding lingering attachments to the one who had raised him. Instead, Sword Sky Tiger had severed the tendons in Hanyu's arms so he could no longer swing a sword. Sword Sky Tiger had subsequently crippled Hanyu's magic organ and locked him in the clan's underground cave. Afterward, Hanyu had been forced to watch helplessly as his junior brother earned the title of Sword Sky Tiger and attracted countless followers. On top of Hanyu and the clan's old home, Sword Sky Tiger had built a large new headquarters for a new clan he created. A voice. Chang Sun thought as the word caught his attention. He realized the next part had to be the important one, and thus tried to find it. However, the will stopped there. What, he thought, raising a brow. He had gone through the book again, but the will stopped there, which could only mean one thing. The next part of the will is hidden somewhere else. Chang Sun realized. Ding. When he came to that conclusion, a quest window popped up. A hidden piece has been found. The Nameless One's will has become a seed and been absorbed into you. As a predetermined reward, the skill that was undergoing skill combination has made significant progress. Skill combination progress. 51%, the hidden pieces fragments are still hidden everywhere, so find all the fragments and combine them. Chang Sun's eyes widened. Enve he had thought he would be unable to make progress in creating the Hyoju nullification skill, but he had suddenly gained 12% of progress, even though all he had done was to find and interpret a hidden piece. The Nameless One is definitely not an ordinary being. No mortal could do such a thing. That meant a deity, the Hanyu had mentioned, must have interfered due to his hatred of Hyoju. I have to find the next books. Chang Sun thought, his eyes shining. Where would it be? Judging from how Hanyu had encrypted his will, he had wanted someone to discover it, however, as he had needed to make sure Sword Sky Tiger's followers would not find it, he would have had to adjust the difficulty level of the encryption accordingly. In order to let someone find the next fragments more easily after they finished decrypting the first piece. He must have hidden every fragment in the Tier 7 library, Chang Sun thought. With that conclusion in mind, Chang Sun combed the entire library. As he had less than 2 hours, he had to find all the fragments of Hanyu's will within an hour. However, he was worried about the possibility of Hyoju noticing the will. The celestial Calamity Tiger is certain that you will become his loyal follower. He hasn't noticed yet. Chang Sun thought with a faint smile. Fortunately, Hyoju had only been watching Chang Sun, not the book he was reading. Regardless, he would be never interested in a Tier 7 book, and one classified as miscellaneous, no less. The celestial world encircling serpent watches you with an enigmatic gaze. Jade Rumungandr, also known as the wise serpent, seemed to have noticed something, however, he seemed unaware of the precise details. I got it. Chang Sun suddenly thought. The next part of the will was not far from the first part. It was in an antique book that had lost many pages, but the book's condition only made the decryption much easier. Eaten by his child. Chang Sun thought, quickly searching memories. Based on the context, his child likely meant Hyoju, but Chang Sun had never heard of Hyoju having parents or even a teacher. Similar to Sword Sky Tiger's biography, the well-known legend of Hyoju was that an ordinary monster had become a monster deity after finding enlightenment. That was the moment Chang Sun became certain of what was going on. His eyes shone with interest as he thought, it's a hidden history. Referred to a source of hidden truths that was not recorded in the myths. In most cases, they were created as a result of celestials intentionally hiding the truth, and thus naturally served as those celestials' weaknesses. Chang Sun had found Hyoju's, which was tantamount to finding his hidden weakness. The next part of the will was mainly about Hanyu beginning to secretly train himself again in the dungeon. Luckily, no one cared about a person who had spent 10 years doing nothing, which meant Hanyu had been able to focus on recovering just as he had taught him. One day, when Sword Sky Tiger returned after wandering around the world, Hanyu decided to execute his plan. It seemed Hanyu had left an encrypted will right before attempting to assassinate Sword Sky Tiger. The will, which had been divided into 6 books and spread across numerous bookcases, ended there, and ding! You have successfully found all the remaining fragments of the hidden piece. The Nameless One's strong will has planted a seed in your heart. Unlocked achievement. Successor of the Fierce Tiger's Sorrow. Reward. Intelligence +5, Willpower +10, Skill, Black Mountain King's Claws. Black Mountain King's first claw, in order to hunt his and his family's mortal enemy, this legacy was left by a certain tiger deity, who disappeared because he had no followers to devote faith to or people to remember his name. There are a total of 5 claws. If the skill owner can draw out all the claws properly, they can not only tear apart their enemy, but also the entire world. There can be nothing scarier in this world than a beast with all its claws bared. Skill level. 1. Type. Active, Counter, Authority. Asterisk temporarily unusable as an authority. Effect. Massive bleeding. Unrelenting offensive. Stacking damage. Skill synchronicity. Chang Sun clenched his fists when he saw the skill window for the new skill. He thought in satisfaction, it even has 4 effects. On top of that, I can automatically use the skill as an authority if I level up, right? The 4 effects were very good. Massive bleeding was a higher rank effect than persistent bleeding, an effect that made the enemy bleed continuously, because using massive bleeding could instantly leave the enemy on the verge of death. Unrelenting offensive enabled Chang Sun to use another skill immediately afterward without having to wait for the cooldown time to finish. Stacking damage multiplied the damage of any skills used after it over time. All of them were valuable, but one effect caught Chang Sun's attention the most. Skill synchronicity. I can conceal this skill inside another skill, or increase the attack's damage by combining it with other skills. Chang Sun thought. As a member of the White Tiger clan, he would have to use Hyoju's skills a lot. Skill synchronicity meant he would be able to secretly combine the Hyoju nullification skill with Hyoju's own skills. Black Mountain King's first claw was actually a counter skill to the White Tiger clan members' various skills, making it a natural enemy type skill against the White Tiger clan. Although it had initially seemed difficult to develop such a skill, as Hyoju had eyes everywhere in the White Tiger clan, that limitation had disappeared. No, Black Mountain King's first claw, and the White Tiger clan members' skills might actually be a good match, seeing as they've got to be rooted in the same source. On top of that, he could automatically use the active skill as an authority after he acquired the 4th claw. Ordinarily, someone would have to be an apostle to obtain such a skill. So this is the skill of an ancient deity no one remembers now. No skill could contain stronger resentment than this. Of course, Black Mountain King's first claw was not perfect. There were many factors limiting its usage in real combat. It would drain too much of Chang.Sun's mana for him to use it even once, and as he had not mastered it, he would only be able to draw out one claw. I need a way to solve this. In any event, Chang.Sun still had to keep increasing his mana as a rune master anyway. I definitely need as many elixirs as possible. The higher his mana capacity was, the better it would be. Although there was a chance that the efficiency of his magic could decrease if he ate random things, he did not need to worry about that. As the fire of the 8 trigrams brazier purified impurities, it would only grow stronger. That's why I need to go to the training institute. Chang.Sun thought as he closed the final book he had been reading. Smack. Skill combination progress. 55%. Looking at the skill he was creating, Chang.Sun smiled coldly, as it could also become a counter-skill like Black Mountain King's first claw. He was very curious as to how the two skills would complement each other, and how Hyoju and Sword Sky Tiger would react when they saw the skills. It's disappointing, but I'll have to take a rain check on getting Avatar's Descent. Chang.Sun thought as he left the library. 1. This clan is in lowercase because the author used the Korean term that refers to a literal clan, not a player clan. Chapter 38. The Training. 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Black Shamshir, the Sword of Osung clan's personnel director Woo Young-gun, frowned as he read through a pile of newspapers on the table. Every front page was talking about Chang.Sun. Although they resembled tabloid articles, they were from prestigious daily newspapers. However, Young-gun had a bigger problem on his hands. Are you listening to me, Uncle Dot? The girl on the other end of the line cried out loudly. The little witch had been pestering Young-gun for several days. Although she was usually very gentle and adorable, she threw massive tantrums when she failed to get what she wanted. Of course I'm listening to you. You want YTS limited edition photo cards, right? I hired them as the main models for our new car commercial, so I'll get them autographed. Young-gun replied. I knew it. You aren't listening to me. I hate you, Uncle Dot. Hi, Bin shouted angrily in response. Hi, Bin, wait, hi, Bin. Young-gun hurriedly called out to his niece. Click. However, she had long since hung up. I'm so depressed. Young-gun thought with a sigh. As the Osung Group president's third son, he was welcomed everywhere in the world, and people always caused a scene to catch his eye. However, among his family, he was just a punching bag, always getting hit by his youngest niece who had just hit adolescence. Because Young-gun had been so busy with work, he had failed to get married even though he was over 40, which meant he felt especially affectionate toward his niece. Whenever his only older brother saw Young-gun acting like a fool around his niece, he shook his head in disbelief, but Young-gun did not care about that. Even before his niece could walk, he had always spent time with her. Her smile could always make him laugh. He had introduced himself as a fool for his niece to other people so often that his niece had yelled at him to stop making a fool of himself because he was embarrassing her. However, his niece had recently changed a great deal after going through the incident that had taken place a month prior. That damn Jamsil gate. If only she hadn't gotten entangled in the gate, Young-gun thought, clenching his teeth. When Young-gun had first found out that his niece, Woo Hai-bin, had gotten swept up in the Jamsil gate, he had been appalled. Not wanting to cause gossip, he had paid special attention to making sure that the press did not find out. Additionally, he had spared no expense looking for a method to dispatch a rescue team to the gate. In the end, however, there was no other method than waiting for a dungeon closure to take place. He had been forced to simply wait and pray nothing would happen. Thus, he had desperately prayed to his guardian, Nameless Giant, again and again to protect his niece. After an excruciatingly long time, the dungeon had fortunately been cleared. When young Gun discovered Wu Hai been safe and sound, he had finally heaved a sigh of relief. Soon after, he learned what had happened in the Jamsil Gate. There had been a son of a bitch named John Chung Jae, whom Yang Gun had wished he could drag out of the grave to kill again. However, there had also been a gracious savior named Li Chang Sunday. Yang Gun had wanted to express gratitude for saving Hai Bin on the Osung group's behalf, but to his surprise, his niece had stopped him. Mr. Chang's son disappeared right after finishing the dungeon quest. I think he did so because he felt uneasy about revealing his ability to the public. I think it would be better to wait until he decides for himself, Hai Bin said. Hai Bin had meant that she did not want to force Chang's son to reveal himself to the world if he did not wish to. As she had a valid point, her family had respected her decision. Still, On Gun had expressed his intention to personally visit Chang's son to express gratitude and offer to recruit him into the clan run by the Osung group. Hai Bin had not opposed him, perhaps because she was happy that her savior had joined the Osung group. The problem is that I failed to even have a proper conversation, Yang Gun thought, clicking his tongue. As their first encounter had been a sword fight, Yang Gun had failed to express his gratitude. Thus, he had given Chang's son his business card and told him to call anytime. He had complacently thought that Chang's son would at least make a phone call, seeing as the Sword of Osung clan personnel director himself had come to recruit him. That was my mistake. Shit. Yang Gun sighed in frustration. Over a month had passed by without any sign of that phone call. And yet, Chang's son had suddenly appeared at the White Tiger clan's recruitment event, setting the world on fire. Yang Gun had been unable to believe that Chang's son was an SSS+++ grade player. After finding out that Chang's son was a genius who could even be classified as EX grade or R. grade, Yang Gun had almost fainted. Of course, his niece had called him several times a day to yell angrily about how much she hated her uncle, saying Chang's son had joined the White Tiger clan because Yang Gun had not tried hard enough. Even his brother, his brother's wife, and his father, the Osung group president, had looked at Yang Gun in a similar way. Unfortunately for him, Yang Gun could not deny that he had been complacent. Still, I was too busy to do anything. I thought he wanted to keep hiding himself. Yang Gun thought, stomping his foot. When Yang Gun had investigated Chang's son, he had discovered that Chang's son had suffered from a great deal of criticism while working as a professional gamer. As such, he had thought that Chang's son still wanted to remain in hiding. That was why he had been waiting for Chang's son to regain his composure in peace, but it seemed he had been mistaken. In that time period, however, he had been busy investigating the Hyoff clan incident after noticing several suspicious movements, which meant recruiting Chang's son had fallen to a lower priority. Regardless, even if he explained the whole story to his niece, she would never be able to understand it. After all, she was just a middle school senior, not even in high school. On top of that, the newspapers were busily reporting that Chang's son was going to the White Tiger clan's training institute. Although the White Tiger clan's probationary training was known for its uniqueness, Yang Gun was unsure whether Chang's son entering it was worth entire headlines. Phew. Yang Gun sighed after a long time. He had no idea how to untangle the complicated situation and recruit Chang's son, who had become a big shot. He massaged his aching temples with his index fingers. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. You have entered the dungeon, Black Blood Mountain Range. Whoosh. As soon as Chang's son passed through the gate, numerous dungeon messages showed up one after another. Commencing the dungeon quest. Quest theme. Purification. Due to unknown magic, the Black Blood Mountain Range has been suffering from abnormalities in its ecosystem for a very long time. Find and eliminate the cause to restore the ecosystem. The mountain range is divided into 8 sectors. As many bizarre-looking creatures that cannot be found in other dungeons live in the dungeon, be careful. To execute the mission, every participant has been granted access to the, and this black and red mountain range really is vast. Chang Sun thought, gaping slightly. The first thought that entered his mind was that there truly were a lot of mountains. In his childhood, he had once climbed Yiri-san Mountain with his father, but these mountains were much larger and taller than Yiri-san Mountain. Some of them were so tall that their peaks were obscured by clouds and mist, invisible to the naked eye. Strangely, the forest was so dense that the entire dungeon's atmosphere felt thick and stifling. On top of that, the trees were all dyed a vivid scarlet, as if they had been soaked completely in blood. Even to Chang Sun, the place felt more ominous than wondrous. When I searched for information about this place online, it said the dungeon's difficulty level was brutal, so I wonder what it's like, Chang Sun thought. The safe zone was the first place people arrived in when they entered a dungeon. The farther people went from it, the more abnormal the mountain's ecosystem became. The sectors located in the innermost area were especially dangerous, to the point that even the White Tiger clan's key members were reluctant to go. Of course, rankers would be able to eliminate the boss monsters, but the dungeon could not be cleared just by doing so. Because of its unique ecosystem, the boss monsters respawned at regular intervals, as well as the ordinary monsters. While protecting themselves from the monsters, players would have to find hidden pieces and purify the entire mountain range mountain by mountain. However, purifying the entire mountain range would do more harm than good. That was why the White Tiger clan had given up on clearing the dungeon and decided to use it as a training institute. But Executive Director O wants someone to finish the dungeon. Chang Sun thought. What secret was hidden in this dungeon? He was about to find out. Then I'll have to take care of him first, Chang Sun thought, glancing at his shadow. Just then, someone spoke in Chang Sun's mind using telepathy. Just like at the library, you can ignore me, so please focus on the training. The message came from Song Yu-jun, Executive Director O's secretary and the one who had guided Chang Sun in the Fierce Tiger Library. He had followed Chang Sun to the training event. The skill, Faint Wind, is following you. I expected him in the library, but I didn't expect him to follow me into the training area, Chang Sun thought, lightly clicking his tongue. It seemed Executive Director O still doubted Chang Sun to some extent. It was understandable, as he no doubt felt the need to test Chang Sun multiple times to decide whether or not to trust him. He had to see whether Chang Sun would try to find his weakness in the dungeon, while also preventing the other White Tiger clan factions from making contact with him. As such, Chang Sun was under Executive Director O's constant surveillance. Although Chang Sun was unsure what methods Yu-jun could use, he knew the secretary could communicate constantly with Executive Director O, who was on the outside. I'll have to lose him when I have the chance, Chang Sun decided. The problem was that Chang Sun could not yet locate Yu-jun with his current ability. Of course, there was still a method to do so, but it was not the time to use it yet. Chang Sun nodded lightly as he walked toward the safe zone, where many trainees had already arrived before him. Most of them looked very nervous. Of course, there were some people who seemed relatively relaxed. They were no doubt confident in their ability and talent, seeing as they were not overwhelmed by the fact that they were about to be trained by the White Tiger clan members, but even those people became somewhat dispirited when Chang Sun came close. Wow! He's really Li Chang Sun, how will he do this time? I don't want to be compared to him. You don't know how it will go. Unlike the tryouts, he might be bad in real combat. When people saw Chang Sun, they talked constantly among themselves. No one tried to approach him due to his cold, distant demeanor. Besides, it was difficult to talk to him after seeing him in every media outlet over the past week. Not paying much attention to the murmurs, Chang Sun took a quick look around the safe zone. He watched the surroundings with interest, thinking, so there are 2, no, 3 useful people. All the people Chang Sun took notice of while at the testing site had been accepted as new players of the White Tiger clan. The first person who had caught Chang Sun's eye was a man with a long ponytail, carrying a 3-meter long spear. As he was 190 centimeters tall and dressed in a pitch black outfit, he stood out from the crowd. His powerful build was so robust he resembled an armored warrior, and he had a cold demeanor. That and his scar-filled face gave him an unapproachable air. The man wore a name tag that read Bek Jio.O on his left chest. However, his appearance was not what truly caught Chang Sun's attention. He seems to be under another deity's protection. Who is it? Chang Sun thought, squinting. However, he could not tell, because Jio.O was too far away. In any event, he would have another chance later. Meanwhile, the second person was a man who looked completely different from Bek Jio.O. The handsome and cheerful man, who wore a name tag that read Lim Ju Han, had already made many friends. The last person, despite looking weaker than the other two, seemed to have extraordinary potential. Wow! Whoa! Appa saw me, the woman exclaimed excitedly when Chang Sun inadvertently met her gaze. She had been staring at him for some time. She was the younger twin who had talked to Chang Sun at the testing site, along with her brother and her acquaintances. Giving the others a light nod, Chang Sun turned to look at the safe zone center. An employee who seemed to be the training supervisor stepped up, calling out, "Everyone! Please settle down and pay attention to me." Rumble. As the employee had used his magic and tiger kill to speak, his voice was loud enough to make the ground tremble. Thus, all the trainees stopped talking and looked at him nervously. The 26th White Tiger Clan probationary training was about to begin. Chapter 39. The Training, 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Hey, you saw my Appa looking at me, right? Oh my god. I can die right now without any regrets, the younger twin shrieked. With a look of disgust, Shin Gyu, one of the members of Team Adios, watched his only twin sister fangirling, feeling as if his worries, had come true. You're one devoted woman, a really devoted woman, Gyu muttered, clicking his tongue. After Chang Sun passed the tests with an overwhelmingly perfect score, Seo had become fervently motivated to join the same company as Chang Sun, and eventually succeeded in joining the White Tiger clan with the highest score in Team Adios apart from Kim Hyung Jun, the team leader. Over the past week, she had been over the moon, excitedly thinking about meeting Chang Sun again in the training institute. Now, she was about to faint because she had actually gotten to meet him. Hey, you're drooling. Your Appa sure will love you if he sees you right now, huh? Gyu remarked sarcastically. Hup. Seo quickly wiped her mouth and pulled out a hand mirror from an inner pocket to look at her face. Gyu shook his head in disbelief. Eventually, he noticed Hyung Jun, his leader, looking serious. He asked, Hyung Jun, is there a problem? No, everything is fine. Although he had spent a while staring at Seo, Hyung Jun quickly came back to reality and smiled gently, shaking his head as he replied. His smile was so natural that Gyu was convinced that he was mistaken. I think he's about to tell us the training institute's instructions, so let's pay attention to him, he said, making Gyu hurriedly shift his focus to the training supervisor. Gyu felt that he had to get his act together on behalf of his crazy sister. Due to the brochure that had been handed to the trainees in advance, it was not difficult to understand the training institute's instructions, however, many of them were unexpectedly tricky. In summary, the instructions were: 1. The training period will last for 100 days. 2. For the first 30 days, trainees will have time to learn and practice the 3 basic skills of the White Tiger clan's members. 3. For the same period, the trainees will go through various training exercises to develop skills they can use in the field. 4. For the remaining 70 days, the safe zone will be deactivated, and trainees will have to survive by relying on the 3 basic skills and any other skills they have learned in advance. 4. There are no rules for the survival phase. Trainees can team up with each other or try to survive on their own. 5. Trainees will gain points for every achievement they unlock in the dungeon. They will gain different amounts of points depending on the level of the monsters they hunt. 6. Instructors and guards will be stationed all over the dungeon, monitoring the trainees at all times to grade them. 7. Instructors will not usually interfere, but they will immediately intervene if trainees are in danger. In such cases, instructors will deduct points. Trainees will fail the exercise if their point total reaches 0. 8. Upon failing the training exercise, trainees can no longer join the White Tiger clan. It is necessary to keep this in mind. In contrast, a predetermined award will be given to trainees with high marks. 9. The top 5 trainees will be eligible for being chosen by the Guardian. Even if it's not mentioned in the regulations, trainees are free to act and make their own judgment as long as they aren't committing crimes. Gyu thought bitterly as he read the rest of the brochure. The first thought that entered his mind was that although the training exercise seemed unrestrained at first glance, it would be very brutal. He sighed lightly. Some people desperately wanted to be players because they sought a chance to turn their life around, but he had been forced to work as a player to support his poor family. As he had chosen to work for the White Tiger clan, some people would dismiss his concerns as mere whining, but he was already beginning to worry about whether the training exercise would end peacefully. Then, I'll first teach you the 3 basic skills, the supervisor said after he finished explaining the instructions. Multiple instructors immediately showed up and handed 3 scrolls to each trainee. When Gyu received the scrolls, his eyes shone with excitement. They were skill scrolls. They were artifacts that enabled people to acquire skills just by reading them, much like skill books. Making even one scroll needed many materials and a lot of money, but the White Tiger clan was giving them away for free. Badump. Badump. Gyu tried to calm his wildly beating heart, but his hands still trembled as he opened the scrolls. Tiger Kill, the basic skill of Calamity Tiger. You can attack your opponent by releasing a magical aura outward. Skill level 1. Type. Active. Effect. Intimidation. Tiger Prowl, you can overpower an enemy merely by walking forward. Skill level 1. Type. Active. Effect. Increase damage. Tiger Disaster, you can unleash more powerful attacks with the force of a tiger's bite. Skill level 1. Type. Active. Effect. Increase attack. I can't believe I got my hands on these. Gyu thought, gaping. Among players, there was a saying that went, the White Tiger clan members' power starts with their 3 basic skills and ends with their 3 basic skills. The saying was not intended to belittle the White Tier clan members, however. The 3 basic skills that were the pride of the White Tiger clan, Tiger Kill, Tiger Prowl, and Tiger Disaster, were very effective and versatile. All 3 of them worked like a set of interlocking cogs. Leveling up one of them would also level up the other 2, as such, training them further would lead to exponential increases in power for all 3. Furthermore, all the other skills and authorities that the White Tiger clan's members were known for had grown out of the interlinked system of the 3 basic skills. From new employees to the 4 attack team leaders who were considered executives, each and every member of the White Tiger clan used the 3 skills as their primary weapons. It was no wonder that Gyu's hands shook as violently as they did when he received the scrolls. I'm about to formally become a member of the White Tiger clan. Gyu thought as he breathed deeply, trying to calm his nerves. The scrolls could not confer complete mastery of the skills. There was a reason why the system measured skill levels, and also why the White Tiger clan gave all its trainees a month. It was intended to allow the trainees to get used to the 3 basic skills. Rip. Rip. Pa. Acquired the skill, Tiger Kill. Acquired the skill, Tiger Prowl. Acquired the skill, Tiger Disaster. The sound of paper tearing filled the air. Skill effects from the scrolls swirled around GM.Gyu's body, making him feel lighter. Have you all acquired the skills? Next, Instructor Yu will demonstrate them in practice, so observe him carefully and reflect, the supervisor called out. As the training was about to begin, all the trainees' eyes sparkled with excitement. However, just as the supervisor was about to continue, someone suddenly raised his hand high in the air. Normally, the supervisor would have ignored it and continued giving instructions, however, he could not do so this time, as that someone was Chang.Sunday. The supervisor felt somewhat nervous, as his superiors had given him several instructions about Chang-sun, however, he was also furious about the fact that a trainee had interrupted him. Thus, he simply decided to deduct Chang.Sun's points if he said something useless, saying, "Yes, Mr. Lee Chang.Sunday. Go ahead. I've already mastered all the skills, and I've heard that I can exit the safe zone before the 30-day training period is over if I show perfect demonstrations of the skills," Chang-sun said. He sounded extremely calm, but the words he spoke affected the crowd powerfully. What? He's learned all of them already. How on earth did he do that? Did he receive the scrolls before us? No way. There are so many people here right now. Why would they use such shallow tricks? You have a point, but how does that make sense? He just tore up the scrolls and instantly mastered everything, from the movements to the posture. No matter how insane his talent is. The previously quiet safe zone was engulfed in an uproar. Worried that another fight like the one that had erupted at the testing site would occur, the trainees anxiously watched Chang.Sunday. Look at my Appa acting so confident. How can he be so feisty? Once a tyrant, always a tyrant. Seo exclaimed, her instincts as a Chang-sun stand flaring up once again. In the past, Chang-sun had been famous for his blunt speech and cold, indifferent attitude when he worked as a professional gamer. It had earned him many haters, but his bluntness had also become his trademark, winning popularity around the world. Now, it seemed that trait was alive and well. No, more than that, he was now the epitome of arrogance in other people's eyes. After all, they did not know that Chang-sun had spent 500 years in Arcadia and heaven. Meanwhile, Hyung-jun was already incandescent with jealousy, but he merely smiled coldly. He regained his composure, thinking confidently, wait, I don't need to get angry, seeing as he's going to fail anyway. In reality, Hyung-jun had long since mastered the 3 basic skills. He was confident that he could perform the perfect demonstrations Chang-sun had asked about. Unbeknownst to his fellow Team Adios members, his father was an executive in the White Tiger clan, which meant his recruitment into the clan was predetermined. However, there was just one thing that had not gone according to plan, placing first in the testing phase. Who could have known he was going to show up at the testing site? Hyung-jun silently screamed in his mind. Hyung-jun had previously heard the details of the audition from his father, thus, he had felt that he was fully prepared, confident he would come out on top with an overwhelmingly high score. He had thought that if he earned first place in the test with a brilliant performance, many people, including Seo, would look up to him. However, those plans had been completely destroyed when Chang-sun appeared. Chang-sun had stolen Hyung-jun's thunder, leaving him so shocked that he had only managed to scrape his way to 4th place. That was why Hyung-jun had been desperately honing his skill for the past week, waiting for his next opportunity. I won't look so pathetic this time. Hyung-jun thought, gritting his teeth. Trainees would partly be graded by the order in which they exited the safe zone. Whomever exited the safe zone first would gain the highest score, thus, Hyung-jun had also been planning to try to exit the safe zone in advance. However, Chang-sun had interrupted his plans once again, leaving him overwhelmed with annoyance. No, this is for the better. Hyung-jun thought, trying to reconsider his stance. Father definitely told me that Chang-sun didn't learn the 3 basic skills ahead of time, and only read miscellaneous books in the Fierce Tiger library. Even if he did gain something from there, he shouldn't have had time to develop it. Hyang-Jun's cold smile deepened as he thought, he must think he's talented enough to use the skills perfectly after looking at them only once. Idiot. If that were true, anyone could learn the 3 basic skills. He naturally thought that Un.Co's rose-tinted glasses would come off if Chang-sun embarrassed himself. All right. Try it, the supervisor, who had been watching in discontent like Hyang-Jun, answered sarcastically with a nod. Afterward, the people nearby all stepped back, creating some space for Chang.Sunday. Phew. Chang-sun carefully controlled his breathing, standing in place. As he exhaled lightly and inhaled deeply. Hyang-Jun thought as he sensed the air around Chang-sun changing abruptly. The atmosphere turned heavy, fierce, and sharp, like a tiger's presence. No way. Hyang-Jun thought, his eyes widening. Chang-sun took one step forward. Thud. The skill, Tiger Prowl, has been activated. The skill, Tiger Kill, has been activated. Rumble. The ground shook fiercely, to such an extent that even the trainees farthest away from Chang-sun felt the vibrations. At the same time, the air rumbled loudly, creating a whirlwind around Chang-sun that was so intense it could be seen with the naked eye. Whoosh, swoosh, swish. The whirlpool slowly distorted, taking on a unique shape. A giant tiger stood behind Chang-sun, revealing its vicious teeth and claws. Wow. Unbelievable shit. He didn't just use them, he even made them take on the tiger shape. The phenomenon that was taking place before their eyes was known as the tiger shape or the tiger form. It required an individual to use Tiger Prowl to gather their magic decisively, then use Tiger Kill to release it. If the 2 skills were combined perfectly, the result would manifest as the tiger form. Thus, Chang.Sun's display shocked all the onlookers to their very bones. The supervisor, the instructors, and the guards were just as dumbfounded as the trainees. This is ridiculous. How can he? Hyang-Jun thought, feeling especially bewildered. Although it had been 5 years since he had learned the 3 basic skills, he still could not properly create the tiger form. It required not only mastery of the 3 skills, but also precise control of one's magic. That was why the clan classified those who could create the tiger form as veterans, which indicated that they needed no further training and could fully pull their weight. Chang-sun had just executed that feat as if it were nothing. However, there was a bigger problem. No way. Is he even going to? Hyang-Jun thought, gaping. If Chang-sun could freely create the tiger form, he could even create the tiger teeth and the tiger claws. At that moment, Chang-sun took Tiamat's snaggletooth from his waist. The skill, Tiger Disaster, has been activated. Suddenly, there was a flash. Slash. A sharp blade of wind created by Chang.Sun's dagger instantly sliced through the air toward the supervisor. Feeling a shiver running down his spine, the supervisor hurriedly dodged sideways. The wind blade that resembled a tiger's claw flew swiftly through the air, and cut through the waist of a monster that happened to be wandering in front of the safe zone's gate. Squirt. Thud. The monster fell in a spray of blood, only its lower body remained, however, as its entire upper body had been torn apart. How in the world, the supervisor muttered weakly, completely stupefied. He could not understand how Chang-sun was able to use the 3 basic skills perfectly, even though it had not been long since he had learned them. Although the supervisor had not asked for an explanation, Chang-sun turned to look at him and nonchalantly remarked, "I just performed them all." From the supervisor to the trainees, most of the people in the safe zone had the same thought. He's so full of himself. The raw is. Koreans sometimes call a loyal female fan. Literally, a virtuous woman who has never taken a lover aside from her dead husband. The term was used to praise women in the past, until the Joseon dynasty, but now, it is used sarcastically. Chapter 40. Star, the Training, 3, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Swish. As Chung-sun lowered Tiamat's snaggletooth, its blade smoking from residual friction, he heard a gasp. Ha! Song-Yu-jun exclaimed in disbelief. He had also learned the 3 basic skills, to the extent that he could manifest the 3 derived skills, the tiger form, tiger teeth, and tiger claw, in his sleep. Considering it had taken him a decade to get to that level, he was dumbstruck. In that moment, he realized just how much talent mattered in everything. He finally understood why Executive Director Oh paid so much attention to Chung-sun, and realized. Was this why he practically lived in the library? Jun thought as he recalled how Chung-sun had immersed himself in books without going home for over a week. I guess geniuses do train themselves in secret to make their talent flourish. Jun thought, concluding that he had guessed incorrectly. He began to respect Chung-sun, who was far younger than him. Yuri so great. I respect you a lot. Chung-sun was unsure why Jun had suddenly begun acting differently. However, he paid it no heed. After all, Jun's guess was not entirely wrong. It was true that Chung-sun's understanding of the 3 basic skills had deepened while searching for Hyoju-related data in the Fierce Tiger library for the skill unification, enabling him to use them with great proficiency. The celestial, Calamity Tiger looks contentedly at you, one who has understood his teachings very well. Hyoju seemed to have taken a liking to Chung-sun as well. He must have started to want me now. Chung-sun thought, vividly imagining what Hyoju no doubt looked like. The celestial, Calamity Tiger promises you that if you continue to display great accomplishments like this, he will bestow an unimaginably high position onto you. The celestial, a good season to hunt, is unhappy. Hyoju had begun dangling a large carrot, seemingly to motivate Chung. Sunday Pablesag looked very discontented as she watched the conversation between Chung-sun and Hyoju. I think I've shown enough to prove myself, Chung-sun calmly told the supervisor. The dumbfounded supervisor simply stared at Chung-sun for a moment, before eventually coming to his senses and clearing his throat with a nod. He heard the other instructors unanimously voicing their opinion, stating that they had no objections. Yes, that's enough. Mr. Lee Chung-sun, you may exit the zone, the supervisor said, pointing to the safe zone's exit. Nodding, Chung-sun thanked the supervisor and exited the safe zone. However, even after he began moving, the remaining people in the safe zone fixed their gazes on him until he disappeared completely. ****, the celestial, Calamity Tiger, is very curious about what kinds of achievements you will earn in the dungeon. The celestial, Calamity Tiger excitedly looks forward to seeing whether you can really clear the dungeon as you proclaimed. Was he watching the conversation I had with Executive Director Oh? Chung-sun wondered for a moment. The forest he had just entered was much rougher than the forest of Firewielders, his first dungeon, where he had undergone the tutorial. There was not a single paved path, and a dense cluster of trees covered the surface of a steep hill. On top of that, the air was so stuffy that it made Chung-sun's movements feel sluggish. The air in dungeons was usually filled with abundant mana, which meant it was good for Chung-sun to accumulate it and use it for himself in the future. However, the air in this dungeon was completely different. Its poor quality constantly interfered with his magic circuit. He knew that the dungeon ecosystem had changed due to the negative influence of unknown magic, and it seemed that the first change in the ecosystem lay in the air. Being exposed to such an environment alone would likely make ordinary players extremely irritable without even realizing it, which meant they would be unable to maintain rational thoughts or judgments, or even become more violent. Of course, that did not apply to Chung-sun at all. The fire of the 8 trigrams brazier is purifying the air. The embers scattered all throughout his body made it impossible for any impurities to remain. The skill Unbending Spirit has been activated. The skill Composed Spirit has been activated. On top of that, Chung Sun even had Minerva's bonus rewards, which enabled him to stay composed no matter what. Click. Continuing onward as if nothing were out of the ordinary, Chung Sun put Tiamat Snaggletooth back on his waist, then took the pair of batons out of his drawing tube and combined them. The celestial world encircling serpent looks forward to seeing what kinds of tricks you will use again, watching you with sparkling eyes. Grabbing the spear, which he referred to as the nameless spear, because he felt that just calling it the spear was too half-hearted, even though nameless spear was not much more of a name, Chung Sun sprang forward. Thump. The skill Tiger Prowl has been activated. Zhen Jiao has been applied to the skill using the principle of rotational force. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Rumble. With the nameless spear in hand, Chung Sun approached a quiet forest. He was unable to detect any presence within it at first, however, as he channeled an aura he created using Tiger Prowl, and amplified with Tiger Kill into his spear, the forest changed completely. The trees in front of him shook wildly, and with a strange sound, a monster that had been hiding furtively in the bushes leaped out toward him. It was a one-legged monster known as a Dokgakui, with blazing eyes and a revolting stench. Bong! Apart from its considerable strength, a Dokgakui could potentially create a plague, which meant it would take 2 to 3 players in the level 20 range to kill it. However, Chung Sun thrust the nameless spear forward, creating a loud explosion like the roar of a cannon, killing the Dokgakui without leaving a trace. Kikikiki. Kayakyakia. Kayakaya. Roughly 10 Dokgakuis, which had been hiding nearby, fled in surprise. The Black Blood Mountain range was filled with so many monsters that Chung Sun practically encountered a new foe with each step he took. Holding on to the bottom of the nameless spear's handle, Chung Sun swung it, drawing a line in the air. Although his movements looked very similar to the tiger teeth technique, which he had demonstrated in the safe zone, it was actually somewhat different. The skill, Black Mountain King's First Claw, has been activated. The moment he used the skill he had acquired in the Fierce Tiger Library, his aura was amplified several times over. His swing sent forth a gust of biting wind infused with black energy, as sharp as a treasure sword. Swoosh! The Dokgakuis leaped into the air in an attempt to flee, but the black wind soon engulfed them, killing them without leaving a single intact body. Only traces of blood and large gashes that raked across the ground remained. Rumble. Thud. Crash. Additionally, the trees behind the Dokgakuis were cut in half, and nearby boulders were reduced to rubble. Everything within a 5-meter cone spreading outward from Chung Sun was left completely ruined. It definitely uses up too much of my mana. Chung Sun thought with a frown. At first glance, he could tell the skill was very powerful. However, he was disappointed because it had used up half of his mana in an instant, leaving him unpleasantly dizzy. Although he had thought it was worth trying at least once in the field, it seemed he could not put it to good use at the moment unless the situation truly demanded it. The celestial Calamity Tiger is surprised by the power of the claw you unleashed. Luckily Hyoju didn't notice. I definitely have to increase my mana somehow. Chung Sun thought as he moved forward, continuing to use Tiger Prowl. There were still many Dokgakuis left alive. Like a tiger running forward at full speed to catch escaping prey, he moved forward with quick but heavy footsteps. Slash, slash, slash. Every time he swung his spear, a Dokgakui's severed head landed on the ground. For any Dokgakui that was too far from Chung Sun, he took off his bracelet and smashed its head with his whip. For those that were too close, he drew Tiamat Snaggletooth with his left hand and sliced through their single leg, leaving them collapsed on the floor. If too many attacked him at once, he disassembled the nameless spear and slashed their chests with both short spears. The Celestial, a good season to hunt, genuinely marvels at your fighting skill. The Celestial World Encircling Serpent wants to study your behavior patterns, because you have been making full use of his bonus reward. The Wei Chang Sun only struck the Dokgakui's weak points using Viper Eyes, was a display of pure artistry. A long spear, 2 short spears, a whip, a dagger. The proficiency he showed with various weapons would no doubt make any onlookers exclaim in surprise. One by one, he killed the Dokgakuis whether they ran away or pounced at him, making his way toward the Dokgakui village. Kia. The village leader, the big Dokgakui, bravely flung itself at Chang Sun with a shriek. Slash. Thud. Chang Sun needed no more than 2 strikes to send the big Dokgakui's head falling to the floor. The nameless spear forged by Choibu Yong was so unbelievably exceptional that referring to it as a treasure would be no exaggeration. You have successfully cleared out the Dokgakui village. As a reward, a Dokgakui's leg joint has been obtained. As a reward, a big Dokgakui's bat has been obtained. TSSSSS. A cloud of black smoke billowed upward from the Dokgakui corpses, indicating the activation of soul exploitation. The purgatory brazier burned their souls and delivered the ashes to Chang. Sunday. Feeling the fatigue that had accumulated during his unrelenting approach fading little by little, Chang Sun inspected a weed growing on the ground. Such weeds were common in the Dokgakui village, but there was something ominous about their purple leaves. Kui. When Chang Sun uprooted the weed, it made a bizarre sound that resembled a ghost wailing in pain. As a reward, a crying flower has been obtained. I got it. Chang Sun shouted inwardly when he saw the message he had been waiting for. Crying flower, a flower that is known to grow in the Siekian flower garden, a place located between the underworld and the Saha world. It often screams for no reason. As it contains deadly poison, it can cause great trouble for anybody who eats it recklessly. Type. Ingredient. Poisonous plant. Effect. Energy intoxication. The crying flower's roots extended and slapped Chang Sun's wrist multiple times as if it were telling him to let it go, but he only tightened his grip even more. First Elder had told Chang Sun about a secret method to obtain the impervious body. However, the Chang Sun called Second Elder taught him another use for the impervious body. You want to strengthen the fire of the 8 trigrams brazier. Why are you asking me, you crazy bastard? Second Elder asked. Because I heard you knew how, and I have no intention of just using the fire to regenerate my body, Chang Sun said with a shrug. Chang Sun explained how he planned to use fire of the 8 trigrams brazier in detail to the Second Elder, as it would be his ace in the hole for sending the zodiacs plummeting from the sky. After he explained his ambitious plan, the frowning Second Elder burst into laughter. What? Ha ha ha. I heard you were insane, but I didn't realize it was true. You're going to change the properties of Taishang Laojuan's fire of the 8 trigrams brazier, from life and creation to destruction and chaos. On top of that, you're going to create. So you're going to follow his shadow. Second Elder exclaimed, laughing uncontrollably. So, are you going to refuse to teach me then? Chang Sun replied, tilting his head. Of course not. I'll definitely help if that's the case, and I don't even have a reason not to explain, as this is my specialty, Second Elder said with a pleasant smile. Tell me the method first, Chang Sun urged Second Elder. The method is very simple. You can increase its power by adding another fire instead of firewood, Second Elder explained. Fire? Chang Sun asked. Yeah, but normal fire will just get swallowed by the original fire, so you'll need a vicious and violent fire, Second Elder calmly said. Do you have any recommendations? Chang Sun asked. Find the monsters Liji or Jigui, second elder answered. Then Chang, son asked. You'll be able to ignite the Ian fire, second elder replied with a grin. As Chang, son was planning to use the fire of the 8 trigrams brazier, as a weapon, the more destructive the fire in it was, the better. Thus, he quite liked the prospect of igniting the Ian fire. Such a destructive fire, which normally only appeared amid the world's destruction, suited Chang.Sun's future plans better than any other. However, in order to make that happen, he had to find the Jigui, which was known to be hiding somewhere in the Black Blood Mountain range. In order to do that, he needed to lay some groundwork. First, he needed to stoke the fire of the 8 trigrams brazier, turning its embers into constantly blazing fires. The crying flowers were an ingredient that could achieve that. He had heard that they mainly grew in the Dokgakui village. Sure enough, they turned out to grow all over the village. Ki-hee. Shoving the screaming crying flower into his mouth, Chang Sun chewed it slowly. Although the sensation of it screaming and squirming inside his mouth was unpleasant, he swallowed it without showing any discomfort. You have swallowed a crying flower, BDNV, its deadly poison has spread. The effect 10 toxin immunity has been applied, making your body immune to its effects. The fire of the 8 trigrams brazier blazes, purifying any impurities. The crying flower's poison did not particularly affect Chang.Sunday. The immunity created by 10 toxin immunity was extremely powerful, and a poison on its level was unable to endure the fire of the 8 trigrams brazier. All the toxin has been detoxified. Purified mana has been accumulated in your magic circuit. Your mana has increased by 0.3. I'm strengthening the fire and increasing my mana. Things are going really well, Chang Sun thought. Smiling victoriously, he pulled out all the remaining crying flowers. They tried to resist by flailing their vines, but their attempts were futile. After all, even the big Dokgakui had failed to kill Chang.Sunday. He was in the midst of a garden of wonder drugs, and there was no way he would leave them behind. Ki. Your mana has increased by 0.4. Your mana has increased by 0.2. 1. This is a real monster from mythology. Its characteristics differ from country to country, but a Korean Dokgakui roams around on rainy days and makes people sick. 2. A flower garden that exists in Korean mythology, known to contain many flowers with magical abilities. Some can be used to resurrect people, while others can be used to destroy the world. Readers may remember Princess Bari from chapter 20. She traveled to this garden to get the herbs she needed to resurrect her parents. 3. This does not refer to mythological monsters, rather, it describes a state in Buddhism where one does not yet realize all beings are Buddhas by nature, and thus does nothing to escape the eternal cycle of reincarnation. 4. A fire ghost, Wagwi, who died from the pain of his unrequited love for Queen Siandik of Silla.